Good afternoon. My name is Sarah. I'm the board administrator for the Texas State Board of Examiners of Marriage and Family Therapists. I'd like to begin by calling the roll. Dr. Merchant,
Present.
Dr. Barty,
Present.
Mr. Castro,
Here.
Dr. Elder,
Here.
Ms. Azell,
Here.
Mr. Price,
Present.
Ms. Rania,
Here.
Ms. Richardson,
Here.
and Mr. Hampton indicated he could not attend. Dr. Merchant, I turn the meeting over to you.
Okay, it is 1 o'clock and I call this meeting to order.
Ouch.
Wait,
Official.
hello, welcome. Okay, so welcome everybody to our meeting. I'm excited to announce that we have two new board members joining us today. We have James Castro, who is a LMFT LPC in the Bernie area. And then we have William Price, who is a public member, and he is a business owner?
Business leader.
Business leader, there you go. I'm down in Houston. So thank you. We are excited to have you both on the board.
Welcome, welcome.
The only other announcement that I have at this juncture is the January board meeting is going to be at SMU. So yeah, so Dr. Elder has made arrangements for us to have the meeting there. We're excited about that. So any questions about that?
January 23rd.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to agenda item number 3.
Approve the minutes of the meeting.
Oh gosh, why do I always forget that?
I got
Just
you.
doing
It's all
my
good.
type. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, so we need to approve the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read through them?
I move to approve the minutes of the May 16th, 2025 meeting. Second.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, raise your hand or say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Sorry, I missed who seconded.
Ellen.
Thank you.
One thing, okay, so let me talk to you really quick about the minutes let me just talk to you about the minutes. It can be quite a burden for Sarah to write up our minutes. However, I like having minutes because I like to know what it is that we did in a previous meeting. I think it's really helpful. So Robert and I were discussing this a little while ago, and I was basically wondering if maybe instead of doing the full meeting minutes, if she did like an abbreviated, we don't even call it minutes. We let the YouTube be like our official minutes, but then like she just kind of take our agenda and basically just like tells us what happened. Like just like a little one sentence, we approved with these following changes. Like, does that make sense? Like just kind of a little brief summary, like a 1-sentence summary, and that's it. What do y'all think?
Sounds efficient. Perfect. I like having the minutes written out. It's a great review, but I'm in the minority and that's okay.
Okay, do you like the long, thick description, or do you just think just like a thin description is enough?
I take minutes of myself. So if you want to do I think for transparency for the public who are reading our minutes, who are saying what happened at the board, taking out the discussion piece reduces transparency for our reasoning for our decisions.
No, yeah.
That's my concern, but I also understand staff time,
Yeah.
especially Ms. Vassal's, when putting on a lot of hats is very valuable.
Okay, let me do Russ and then James.
Are we at a point where we would use AI to record, make a transcript, produce a summary?
Me and Robert threw that idea out there too.
The difficulty there is it really comes down to official minutes versus versus a document that is for the board's purposes. When we talk about official minutes, it does need to be correctly accurate. And so one of the benefits of using the recorded video as the minutes is it is exactly what happened. If we did an AI transcript, we would have to pretty carefully review it to make sure it didn't have any ghosts that got in, any sort of inaccuracies, if that is being kept as our official minutes. Honestly, it's one of the hard parts of having Sarah do an official written minutes is because then she has the pressure of making sure she accurately reflects everything that was discussed. Now, if we were talking about having supplemental documents that are for the board's edification, we can have an annotated agenda, we can have an unofficial transcripts. that's simply available for your uses, that's not a concern because it's not officially anything.
James,
Yeah, I was similar, in the use of the AI. But it is different, you're right, this is, as a state board, we use it all the time at work to capture our meeting minutes. But if we have the video, does the public have access to the video
Mhm.
after the fact?
Mhm.
So they could see them?
Yeah.
Very good.
okay, any further discussion or how do y'all want to move forward?
What do other boards do?
This is, of our boards, this is the only board that records written minutes. Everyone else does the.
Does the YouTube.
Does the YouTube.
They don't even do this, like nothing is sent to the board for minutes to review for the next meeting.
Correct. Y'all are the only ones.
See,
So
I-
everybody
Are,
just.
are we special or are we an annoyance?
How do those boards then double check? Do they all just go back and watch the entire YouTube video before the next one to make sure that all important items are carried forward to the next agenda?
Generally, not to toot our own horn, generally they rely on us as staff to make sure none of those balls get dropped.
For me,
It happens. That is certainly a concern.
for me, I'm not worried about balls getting dropped as much as I like to remind myself what we did.
Same, that's what I mean. Not
Yeah.
that staff is inefficient or ineffective. It's that it reminds me what we did.
Okay, any further discussion or, I don't know, anybody else want to chime in? Nicole, what's that look on your face about? Oh, maybe not.
I'm a big fan of Sarah's, and since it's recorded and this is another big thing on her plate, I'm totally fine with
Annotating
something,
notes.
yeah, something more abridged.
So we can have the abridged ones or the full
I would say abridged.
abridged?
So we can either watch it and, or just get the summary, or both, we'll do both.
You could do,
We
yeah,
can do
so
both.
there'll always be the video.
Yeah.
And that can be our official minutes. And then we'll just have like a little
Mhm.
like, what do you think, Sarah? Let's ask you what you think.
I'm here to serve the board's functions.
Okay.
So whatever serves the board's functions.
That's no help.
I know.
I think if it captures the discussion, even if she does it briefly, that would be a way to go back and see it.
If what does, I'm sorry, Barbie, I didn't catch what you meant.
If she was able to do an abridged version that captured the discussion, not what every person said, but kind of overall, maybe.
So what were you gonna say, Sarah?
Walking down the road, if it's an abridged brief summary, does that appear in board members' meeting materials only? Because right now, that's how the minutes are. That we don't post the minutes and the video to our website, we only post the video.
But the public has access to this
If
through
they
the
do,
public meeting.
if they do a
materials.
public information,
So the public doesn't
Oh.
even have access to
I
our.
thought they got it in the like public meeting.
is that correct?
materials.
You're shaking your head no.
They don't get this?
You're testing my memory now. Let me go back to look at our past. I don't think. I don't believe they currently get the written minutes. Yeah.
And there was
Yeah.
back a number of years ago now, there was a board vote to have the video as your official
Right.
recording.
Yeah,
The minutes were gravy.
okay.
Abridged.
Yeah, then let's just do like just basically take the agenda and just remind us, what we approved or what we decided or just. And it could be that maybe we decide that that's not helpful and we do that for a couple of meetings and then we just abandon the whole idea. But I think for now it'd be helpful to have just some little gentle reminder of what we did in our previous meeting without having to go back and watch the entire video.
So then did that answer your question, Ms. Fassholz, about whether this is public or private? It would continue to be private then, is that what we're?
That's my understanding.
Okay, okay.
This works.
I'll do my best to be brief.
One request if you could maybe put the time. That's
To annotate it so you know where
so I
this
can
where it's in the video.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Good idea. Okay. Okay, we are now moving on to agenda item number 3, which is public comment. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Sarah.
So for public comment, we generally take people who are physically in the room. We have no one attending from the public physically in the room. Next, we will look at those who are attending by Zoom. There's a raised hand feature in the bottom navigation bar. If you'd like to make public comment, please use the raised hand feature. Please note that public comment may be provided for anyone who wishes to speak on a topic that is within the board's jurisdiction. However, this is not intended as a back and forth discussion or a question and answer session with the board. Also, we cannot comment on a pending complaint or a particular application. If you have questions about your particular application or a particular complaint, please use the Contact Us webpage to ask staff to assist you with that. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes. After we've exhausted all of those who are attending by Zoom and have raised their hands, I will go through the attendee list for anyone who is attending by phone and ask you to unmute. *6 generally will unmute your phone and allow you to give your public comment. And with that, Mr. Philip Crum, you have public comment.
Well, I do. I'm Philip Crum, co-founder with Kathleen Mills of the AMP organization, and I'm here in my capacity today as a citizen of the great state of Texas, not to ask you to do anything, but simply to share my thoughts. I'm very proud of the work the BHEC organization has done in the past 5 years, thrilled at the direction the boards and the council are taking. The healthcare professions, which include mental health providers, currently have well-deserved public relations problems, which are raising very real questions of competence, including this discipline. We've lowered the bar for entrance into this profession under the guise of removing barriers to entry to deal with a workforce shortage. Removing barriers to entry is just a euphemism for lowering competency standards because our schools aren't turning out a competent product anymore. If they were, we wouldn't have to lower the standards for entry. Our workforce shortage is a failure to properly train and allocate human resources. It has little to do with not having enough licensees. If it did, the additional 10,000 licensees we've added since the shortage began would have taken care of the problem. Academia needs to do a better job of training and directing career choices to where the state needs human resources. My hope is that a battery of competency tests for both knowledge and professionalism could be administered to potential licensees before they're licensed, and I understand that is a legislative issue to take up with them. We need an oral exam component for initial entry, a human-to-human discussion with an applicant to ensure a high bar minimum of competence and professionalism. It must include a demonstrated ability to deliver it. This wouldn't be easy, but it would keep a lot of unqualified people, some of them dangerous, out of the profession. It would raise the bar of competence and help our boards better perform their duty to protect the citizens of Texas from unqualified counselors. An oral exam for new applicants has historically seen a 30 to 40% failure rate. Now, that says a lot about the training they're receiving and the applicant's suitability for the role. I don't want everyone to get in. The licensing process is not about ensuring everyone gets a participation trophy. The process includes protecting the public from those not qualified or meant to be counselors. The road to entry needs to be rigorous, otherwise the achievement means little, especially to the public. Kathleen and I and our membership appreciate the boards, the council, and the BHEC staff for the work you've done. What we have in this field, however, is a competence shortage, which means that the new counselor pipeline is not working optimally. Let's raise the bar, not lower it, and keep moving in the direction we're heading. And I appreciate you listening to me, and welcome to the new members.
Thank you, Mr. Crum. Ms. Kathleen Mills, you have public comment?
I do. I'm Kathleen Mills with the Association for Mental Health Professionals. When a segment of our licensee base believes they have the moral obligation to annihilate the rights of other licensees, which does involve aggressive tactics to slander, threaten, and blacklist licensees to the public, or voicing different opinions through verbal and physical threats against other licensees, then our profession has a terminal problem. The recent murder of a moderate civil rights activist who specialized in open public debate and free speech is focusing on a national spiritual war problem. We are divided as a nation into two groups, one of who believes their moral superiority justifies the killing of those who hold alternate ideas. Our profession is a microcosm of that larger.
Ms. Mills?
Ms. Mills, we've lost your audio. You may need to check your microphone.
Is she still, like, can you still see her?
I can still see the microphone is on.
Oh,
Oh, we lost her.
she,
Maybe she'll come back in a minute.
oh. Allow her.
Oh,
Hey,
Ms.
there
uh-oh.
you are.
There you
I
go.
don't
Now
know
we
what
can hear you.
I guess it didn't like what I had to say. I do apologize.
No,
Um,
no.
so
Go
where do I
ahead.
start?
Just back right where you were. We barely missed anything.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Um, AMP has been shouting this for the past 3 years, but apparently people have to die before we wake up this profession and admit that what we're dealing with is the embodiment of an evil that prefers violence and death over civility. If it's acceptable to you to have your mental health professionals celebrate and justify a public assassination on Facebook and other social media platforms, then there is a tolerance of dehumanization and code of conduct issue you have yet to address. The K-CREP curriculum, along with the help of activist professors, are churning out social justice warriors, and the state is licensing them as therapists who are more concerned with pronouns than actual competence. Graduates are also taught to abide by an association blueprint, which is non-binding here in the state of Texas. Associates are saddled with debt, not told they might have to pay a supervisor to complete BHEC's required supervision, then make supervisors like me the bearer of bad news, making us the targets of their anger when they realize their financial predicament. We don't have a workforce shortage, board. We have a competency shortage. My message to associates, supervisors are not the enemy. Supervisors are here to get you up to speed on the things academia never taught you. Supervisors need to be paid a fair wage for their supervisory work, which includes our liability for you and the businesses that they run. Should the numbers don't work for you, associate, then vote with your feet and go interview somewhere else. You have options. Stop vilifying supervisors for decisions you made regarding your debt income ratio. Board, we have a professional organization fighting to not be called healthcare professionals so they can continue to write letters greenlighting the gender affirming care process for minors, labeling the issue one of free speech to make it palatable to their membership who pay their bills. You are a part of the government agency that is being tasked by Joe Citizen and the state statutes of Texas to address it. To the degree that you are able, I hope you do your part to rid our professional house of this absolute evil. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mills. Again, if you are attending by Zoom and you can use the raised hand feature, it's in the bottom part of the navigation bar. I see no hands raised. And I see no one attending by phone. So I believe that concludes public comment.
Thank you. I did want to mention the public comment we received from Dr. Little regarding autism and ADHD diagnoses. I believe BHEC is going to look into that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's a topic
Okay.
it's on our list.
Okay. Is there anything that board members would like for BHEC to know or the attorneys to know before we begin engaging in conversations around diagnosing?
Well, I mean, in looking at the concerns expressed and looking at our rules and statute, I went into statute and Google, did a find for assessment. Is it allowed? We are allowed to assess and diagnose. And then I went into our rules and it is listed under authorized services 801.4213 that we can diagnose. 17, assessment, including formal and informal instruments, if the licensee has been trained to provide that type of assessment. So I feel like based on our statute and rules, that kind of assessment, as long as the trainee can prove competence, is within our scope. And I would encourage BHEC to consider that.
Patrick?
I mean, there was the TMA, Texas Medical Association, sued the Marriage and Family Therapy Board, and this actually went to the Texas Supreme Court. And they said,
Right.
while the term assessment is not, or diagnose is not in the actual statutory language, it is assumed, and so there is a right to use the DSM-5 to diagnose, so that's, while you won't find it in there, Texas Supreme Court says it's presumed in there, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank y'all. I look forward to seeing what we end up doing with this, so. Okay. Okay, then informational items. Okay, so, item 4A, that is the board chair report. So couple of things. First, TMFT is coming up, on April 9th to 11th in Galveston. I will be presenting there. Most likely I'll just be doing a rules update, like I have done in the past. Is there anybody who would like to present with me? I do believe that TMFT is moving towards the same tradition as TCA, meaning that if you present, you have to pay to go, you know what I mean? So in the past, like when I've had public members or, other people who are presenting with me who are just there for the day or just for that one presentation, TMFT has not required them to, you know what I mean? Anyways, but I think they're moving away from that and that all presenters have to register for the conference. The board will not pay for our registration for the conference, nor will they pay for our travel. So if you are going, I go every year anyways, no matter where it's at. So I don't mind going and doing. So I don't know, Robert.
If y'all are interested, please let us know and let me or Daryl reach out to TMA.
Okay.
We may be able to persuade them not to do that.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
And we also have our next board meeting is April 10th, right in the middle of the TMFT conference. So you might want to say, I need to present on this specific day.
Or I think I might need to change the conference, or I might need to change the day of our meeting.
Or think of all the attendees we would have if we had it there.
Can we do that? Can we have it there?
Can we travel twice?
We have done that in the past.
It's in Galveston.
Don't know about traveling twice.
Are we allowed to travel twice?
There is no prohibition against traveling twice.
Okay, find out if you can travel twice and let's see if, I know it'd be fun.
They
Because
used to.
Because if he was gonna come to our meeting, because it's like our meetings are so long. Like would people actually come to our meeting in the middle of a conference?
We give them CEs,
There you go.
epic CEs.
Also, nobody's
Right
here.
after.
Who's here now?
I know.
So it's like not gonna prohibit anybody from coming.
We can only go up.
Yeah.
It's worth exploring.
Well, okay, let's explore that, I don't know. Anyway. We could all present together then.
That'd be
So that would be a really lively meeting. I'm just trying to think. If
Gotta
we
watch
did
it
have a
for 'em.
meeting.
I'm gonna watch.
That'd be fun.
We would have people show up.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's good or bad.
I don't know. Okay, let's Okay, we'll talk about that. Anyway, so that's TMFT. Also last week, September 19th, I did a TMFT webinar on common violations and just how to avoid them. I did that same presentation last year. We did it together. The three of us did it together last year at TMFT, and then I went and just did like a little webinar for them. I got lots of good feedback on it, which is to me shocking because that is my least favorite way to present. You just like talking to a void. Like there's no, like you talk to your PowerPoint. It is so bizarre. Anyways, but I got lots of good feedback on it. So I'm glad I was able to do that. Jody, myself, and Daryl all went to the AMFTRB meeting, which was last week also. And then Jody and Daryl were able to go to the CLEAR conference. Daryl actually presented at both CLEAR and at the AMFTRB meeting, which is pretty cool. So some of the things they talked about, they had one presentation there by Peter Bradley and some other people with AMFTRB about hours requirements. And essentially one of the things they noted was that there's not a whole lot of evidence. Well, actually, there's no evidence. There's no evidence out there regarding like how many hours leads to competency. Like how many hours does somebody actually need for us to hand them a license?
Is that supervised experience?
Supervised experience, yeah. And so kind of the stance they took, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Jody, or if I feel like I'm misinterpreting this, but the stance that I felt like that they were taking was that we either need to reduce or maybe even nix hours requirements, because again, there's not any evidence to back up that it protects the public or, I don't know. Some of the research that has been done, in my opinion, is not very good. And so, Anyways, all of this has led me to the conclusion that like about a year ago, I got this idea for like the board doing a little bit of research on hours requirements. And I'm not gonna add, I swear I'm not gonna add it to your plate, okay? But I do think that one thing I would like to revisit that idea with probably the licensing standards committee, the idea of maybe doing some research, our own research to try to understand competency as it relates to minimum requirements. So in terms of like our ethical rules, but also in terms of like client competence, like clinical competence. Us maybe doing a little bit of our own research to try to understand that better so that we actually have something to be able to base our hours requirements off of. Does that make sense?
Also,
Yes,
memory serves, some of this is by statute. So
some of it is by statute.
even if we said, which I would never vote for,
Yeah,
but even if we said, we think we should completely do away with
Hours.
associateness,
yeah,
it's in our statute, so we don't have the ability to
to
do
do it
that.
anyways. Yeah,
So I'm not trying to argue with you. I will
Yeah.
do whatever you ask me to do.
yeah.
Also, we can't do that.
We cannot do that, but I do think that having evidence one way or the other would then enable us to either justify why our role is what our role is, or it would enable us, or not us, because we can't, but it would enable some other organization to be able to go to the legislature at some point in time and say, this is a more realistic, or this is where competency, this is a sweet spot for competency, if that makes sense.
Were there comments made about compact implications? Other states that might require hours or numbers or something like that, and
Well, I mean, we don't have an MFT compact, so we didn't worry about that.
Not
But
yet.
one thing that we would have to worry about would be things like Medicaid or Medicare. Like to be a Medicare provider, you have to have at least a 3,000 hour, like they based Medicare off of the 3,000 hours, with 1,500 of those hours being direct. And I would assume that even some insurance companies also probably base, you know, being qualified to be an insurance provider based on those hours requirements. So I don't think that we are anywhere close to being at a place where we would want to change our hours requirements. But I think it's a good idea to gather data.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, if you want. So,
Yeah, I would support that. I think I agree with everything you said about what the presentation said. The other piece they were looking at is when they did kind of a focus group with supervisors, the supervisors said, I know within 3 months whether this person's gonna make it or not, whether they're gonna be a good provider or not. And so what they were suggesting we move toward is if we continue supervision, move toward a competency model. Can they do X, Y, Z? Boom, that's minimum competency, go practice. Versus this period of time, whether you've already met the competencies or not. That was their big push, so.
I think that might help with gatekeeping stuff too. A lot of supervisors talk about not really feeling empowered to actually fill the function of a gatekeeper. And if it was something measurable, observable, tangible.
That's exactly what they're saying.
seems like there'd need to be a more rigorous focus on supervisor training and requirements and expectations to make sure that there's a uniform
Absolutely.
approach to everything and not just the requisite 6 hours of supervisor refresher.
Well, the 40 hours that you have to complete in order to become a supervisor, there are trainings of very varied quality.
True.
That was so.
There's a spectrum.
Thank you.
It's a,
It's intentional.
you're saying they're on the spectrum?
They are on a spectrum.
They're on this, okay.
Yes. So we might then need to put something more specific in our current rule about what that 40 hours looks like. Because right now the 40 hours doesn't have a lot of
we have a rule.
specific stuff in it though. There's a rule, but I think
Yeah, it does. It says you have to cover this and this. It has
It
specific
has
pieces
it's
and.
broken out by hours.
Yeah.
6 hours have to be this, 3 hours have to be that. But again, even with that, it may or may not be quality 3 hours. It might not be a quality 6 hours, you know?
which
So-
even if we got more specific, I suppose it could still potentially be not quality.
I do wonder, even like, so like, as I've been looking into like different, like, as I've been thinking about like even like for our supervisee survey, like looking at competency even within that, like that's really made me think about how I do supervision and the things that I'm looking for in my supervisees. So I'm wondering even, and again, I probably want to do this after we've done our supervisor survey, but like, even if we produce like a guidance document for supervisors that says, these are the things, like even if we didn't put in a rule, like these are the things that you need to be looking for in a supervisee, or these are the competencies that, you know, even having that might be helpful for supervisors, just to know what they should be looking for, perhaps.
Didn't I draft something like that for us last year?
You did, but that's on, that was on the, like, how did,
Practices.
yeah, for whenever you adopt when you adopt a supervisee, whenever you take on a supervisee. Yeah, it's like what both kind of parties need to be looking for.
And I remember you gave very specific instructions about what needs to be in the supervisory file, which was
Exactly.
really helpful.
Yeah.
But I think what is happening at the national level is these conversations about a movement toward just take away the hours and just say, here are the minimum competencies to be a good service provider. And then once the supervisor sees that, you're free to go, licensee. As long as the supervisor feels comfortable signing off on that
Right.
for state boards.
And then, I don't know, I guess maybe I'm getting way out in front of this, but I'm also imagining how many complaints we'll get
I know.
from associates who are saying they are being
Held back.
discriminated against or picked on or
Exactly.
what have you.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It puts a lot more liability on the supervisor.
It does, it does. So
Yeah,
this is kind of
yeah.
a mixed bag here.
We'd have to train the trainers really, really well, more stringently.
Well, I think that's why we have historically done hours. It's because you just try to set an hours requirement that captures most people, so that most people will be competent by the time they've done this particular number of
Yeah,
hours.
and when they're talking hours, they're not talking about like the 24 months. That would still stay in place, right?
Oh,
That
I
they
don't know.
would still need to be under supervision for a period of time. Even if we remove the hours, that they would need to collect the 3,000 hours. We're not limiting the initial time frame of an associate license.
Well, well, I'm not sure what AMFTRB is proposing, but, and I'm not saying that we would ever get rid of hours requirement,
Right.
but like, hours makes more sense than a period of time, because one of the things we've seen people do when it comes to a period of time is they just wait it out. You know, so like when we've had people move here from another state and they're 3 months short, you know, time wise, or they're, you know what I mean? Like they just run down the clock as opposed to, does it make sense?
Totally.
And so I don't know, if we ever did move to like a time, only a time, I would worry about people doing that.
But you're hearing from supervisors that they want more ownership of the process though.
I think so. Anyways, I think I will probably kick some of this conversation to licensing standards committee so that we can have more conversation about this, maybe be thinking about, you know, what information do we need? What do we want to know? Like, how can we gather information to help us make better decisions, you know, as we're moving forward. So, okay. So that was one thing. Daryl also talked about ketamine assisted psychotherapy and AI, which we have also both been talking about at BHEC. After AMFTRB, I actually emailed Daryl and asked him about like, should we add psychedelic assisted services, psychotherapy to like our scope of practice and throw in some like limitations there, kind of similar to how like biofeedback is listed currently in our scope of practice. Anyways, Daryl reached out to the office of the governor and basically they told us to hold off making any rule for the time being. The Texas Medical Board is actually looking into psychedelic services. And once they have kind of figured out what they're doing, then it'll help us know whether or not we need to do something specific in our rules or not, you know, or if that covers it. So anyway, so we'll see how that goes. Regarding AI though, I did review our rules regarding how we define technology assisted services. And I noted that in our rules, we exclusively define technology assisted services as telehealth. You know, probably because at the time, that's what we meant. But now we have AI. And so it makes me wonder if we need to perhaps go back and, okay, good. So then I will probably ask the rules committee if they will look at our definition of technology assisted services and figure out if there is some way to change or modify or just what we need to do there in order to make sure that we're being inclusive of all sorts of technology. So, Okay, so that's kind of what I took from AMFTRB. Jody, is there anything that you want to add either from AMFTRB, or is there anything you want to tell us about the CLEAR conference?
I would love to share some insights from the CLEAR conference. The thing that almost knocked me out of my chair, which I want the public to hear and pass along, particularly supervisors, is that there are companies who their specific job is to source exam material as much as they can. And so they will reach out to a person who's about to graduate and say, you're about to take the exam. We can help you with that. We can show you questions from the actual exams to help you pass so you can practice more effectively. And then the student will pay for the exam material and use it to study. And then after that student passes the exam, the company comes back and says, you know, that was cheating, right? And we need some more money or we're going to tell your board.
Oh, my goodness.
Not only that, for other, well, I mean, and it could definitely apply to us. They come back to those particular people who are now licensed and have a job, and they say, unless you want to lose that license and that job, we need you to share some information about what's happening in your sessions. And it's compromising the integrity of the exam, but also it's very, very sketchy. And it's happening. Like, I was in the room when one board said, yes, we just got a report from one of these companies saying the licensee wouldn't give us any more money, so we just reported them. So it's that. It's also, hey, you just passed the exam. Why don't you you're so stellar student, you passed so well. Why don't you share with us what you saw in the exam? So you can pay it forward to new licensees. And it's all cheating, and it's all sacrificing the integrity of the exam. And it's happening. These companies are making millions of dollars. And it's not just our company, our board exam, it's all licensing exams. So just a heads up, I'm telling my students about it right and left. I think they need to know because I think it's very tricky. The other thing is there was a presentation on this concept that came out of the UK called right touch regulation. And I really liked it. It really resonated. I'm going to share it with you guys afterward. And it has some concepts for how do you weigh out how much regulation is needed based on the risk of harm. And it has 8 principles of what right touch regulation looks like. When do you as a board step in? When do you as a board stay back? And so I thought those were really helpful. I'm happy to share those with you. And then there was a really fascinating presentation about the pros and cons of regulation, because deregulation is the rule right now. So what happens if we just get rid of it? Why don't we get rid of it? What does regulation offer versus a certificate, a voluntary certificate? And so it was very helpful, some good conversations, and I'm happy to, I'll share those with.
Share them with Sarah, and
Okay.
then that way Sarah can send them out to all of us.
Perfect.
Just the PowerPoints from them.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions, comments about that? Okay, oh yeah, yes, Robert.
Madam Chair, just before you move on, if you are moving on through reports, I hate to interrupt. If it would be feasible, we have Jason Grubb here from CE Broker.
Oh, nice.
He's doing his best to manage. He's double booked today
Oh, gosh.
with the South Carolina board.
Oh, yeah.
They had told him he would be early with them, and so he was going to come later for us. They've now told him, hey, we're taking a break. Can you come back later? So he is here and available now.
Perfect.
If you wouldn't mind interrupting our flow.
Yeah, let's interrupt our flow. This is perfect. Fine.
Just one to section 5.
So, yeah, this would
Number
be
5.
item 5.
Okay, we're skipping down to item 5.
He was on the webinar, right?
And so, yep, so Jason has been our main contact with CE Broker and is our go-to guy. And so he's gonna walk through a little bit about our implementation to this point and where things are. And we'll share things we've posted on our website as well. So Jason, I'll turn it over to you.
I appreciate that, Robert, and Chair Merchant and members of the board. I appreciate your flexibility and willingness to squeeze me in. It's been a hectic week. It's been not only a hectic day, it's been a hectic week, kind of all in all. But hey, we are almost across the finish line here. So I appreciate y'all taking the time to let me share with you a little bit this afternoon. So as you know, Robert mentioned, my name's Jason Grubb. I'm your client success manager with CE Broker. Essentially, that just means that I kind of serve as your primary point of contact. The kind of agenda I have for you today, it's really just one kind of a high level overview of CE Broker, just making sure that you all are familiar with kind of who we are and what we do. Then more pointedly, I want to jump into kind of outlining our progress so far, and that'll include kind of the communication efforts that we've laid out today. And then I'll also kind of share with you some figures related to adoption of our platform by your licensees so far. I'll talk about kind of some upcoming goals and next steps. And then, of course, if there are, any questions that you all may have, please feel free to interject. I often get tired of hearing my own voice, so any opportunity I can take to stop talking, I'll be grateful. I mentioned before, just kind of a high level overview. CE Broker is really just but one product line under an organization called Propellus, and that organization kind of holistically is focused on modernizing how licensed professionals like your licensees and their employers, the regulating entities like yourselves, and those kind of respective either national, state, or regional associations kind of all collectively work together. A little over 20 years ago, we were conceived as a solution for Florida's Department of Health as a way to better automate their continuing education processes for the 33 healthcare boards and million plus licensees underneath that umbrella agency. Additionally, you'll see on the screen here, EverCheck, that's a credentials verification platform. It's used by hospital and health system HR departments, basically working to ensure that healthcare workers and other employees, that they're kind of clear to be out on the floor at any given day. And then thirdly, there, Anywhere, that's a comprehensive employee and occupational health monitoring software solution. One more slide on the history here. Since that founding of ours a little over 20 years ago, we have expanded quite a bit. We now work with a little over 300 agencies nationwide, and that equates to about 5 million licensed professionals. And uniquely, we work with thousands of educational providers as well to help encourage professional development and just in general support CE compliance across kind of all those respective stakeholders. A little more specific to you all, Texas actually marks the 12th state whose mental and behavioral health licensees we serve. There's a good chance that your colleagues and peers in some of the other states kind of displayed here on the screen, they may already be familiar with CE Broker, possibly even using us. Robert and Daryl and the staff have heard me say this a number of times, but I selfishly, maybe in some ways, I live in Colorado now, but I'm from Texas. I grew up just north of Austin there in used to be a little town called Jarrell, Texas. I went to college at Texas State there in San Marcos before it was Texas State. So like I said, selfishly, I'm pleased to see that this solution that I'm so close to is now being used and adopted in a state that I still feel very close to. I think you all are aware of this, but our solution is not just for the board. It's kind of built with all three primary stakeholders in mind, that being the board, the licensed professional, and then the educational provider as well. And they all kind of interact with our system via their own kind of unique portal to complete kind of what we call their respective the piece of the CE puzzle, as it were. But now that we have some of those foundational pieces out of the way, I just kind of want to turn our focus to how we've been working with the Texas State Board of Examiners of Marriage and Family Therapists specifically. So as I know you all are well aware, occupational licensure and continuing education requirements, they vary quite widely from state to state and from board to board. So as such, CE Broker is not a one-size-fits-all solution. We really can't be. So by necessity, we customize and configure our platform to your own unique regulations. And, thanks to our experience in this space and thanks to your staff, which are very knowledgeable and have been very responsive through this entire process, we were able to go from contract signature in January to now having a delivered product and open access for all of your licensees in just about 8 months there. And I won't detail too much of the kind of individual milestones on the screen here, but I just want to stress the numerous meetings and the verification conversations that we had with your staff to just help ensure that we fully understand your laws and your rules so that our system can be reflective of such. It's definitely kind of a team effort. And then you'll notice there that last kind of bullet point, your staff announced to the licensed population that CE Broker, this new tool, is now available and ready for them to use on August 13th of last month. But that point of communication to the population wasn't wasn't and isn't the only piece of communication. And I kind of want to jump into that messaging strategy in a little more detail here for you as well. But I know you all have rolled out new systems, new processes, and new requirements before, and you know that can be kind of a real challenge sometimes, especially when you're dealing with large license populations like you all are. And we are really thankful to your staff's thoughtful and proactive approach to kind of laying out a multifaceted and recurring messaging campaign to help ensure that licensees feel like they're in the know, they're up to speed, there isn't too much confusion. So you'll see here there were 2 pre-launch notices that went out informing licensees kind of the upcoming availability of CE Broker. But those pre-launch messages, they also encouraged licensees to participate in one of several co-hosted webinars that CE Broker and your board staff have done and will do in conjunction. And I'll talk about that in a little more detail here in a second. But that kind of parlayed into the announcement that I mentioned went out last month to the entire population. Then, of course, starting with that August announcement, that coincided with licensees starting to receive information about CE Broker in those kind of 75-ish day renewal notices that they receive. And like I said, that started with the I guess that would be the October renewals, which get notices in August. But to dive into that webinar component in a little more detail, we had the first of those 3 webinars that were slated on August 27th. So it's been just about a month now. And participation was really strong. I don't know exactly how many MFTs were present, but across all of BHEC and all the licensees underneath that kind of umbrella agency, there were about 1,000 folks on the Zoom call, which is actually our seat cap. We're limited by the number of people that can participate. But we wanted to ensure that those who weren't able to join the webinar could at least view the information. So we pushed the webinar to a live stream. We had about another 2,000 or so folks participate in watching that live stream that was broadcast to YouTube. And there was a ton of engagement. I'm sure you all know how engaged your licensed population is. That certainly carried over to this webinar as well. There were several hundred questions. We were able to answer quite a lot of those. But we do have 2 more webinars that are slated for October 29th and December 10th. So for those that weren't able to participate in that August event, we have a couple more coming up here as well. And I think there's already, I haven't checked in the last couple of days, but as of Monday, there was something like 2,300 or so folks across all of the Behavioral Health Executive Council registered for that October event. So participation continues to be strong and interest is high. So kind of the next logical question then is, what has been the result of all this communication and letting licensees know that this new system is available? I have 2 slides here for you. One is all the licensees underneath Behavioral Health Executive Council. The other is specific to your board. Here, you'll see that since that announcement on August 13th, engagement has increased steadily day by day. So for all of BHEC, this is about 16% or so of the licensed population have already gone in and claimed their CE broker account, which is, again, just a testament to the communication strategy that we laid out, and I think just general interest by the licensed population in jumping in there early. So focusing on your specific board, about 691 marriage and family therapists have already claimed their accounts. That's about 15% or so of your population. So kind of right in line with that that trend, that norm that we're seeing across all of the BHAC population. And then kind of just looking ahead to the next several months, kind of what's on tap, what are some key milestones that we have coming up. So in addition to the future webinars that I mentioned and you know, any upcoming board presentations, ongoing communications, the next phase of the rollout really involves integrating CE Broker with your licensing system. That's done via a backend, what we call an API connection, and that's going to help to verify a licensee's CE compliance as reflected in CE Broker system in real time when they are renewing their license. And, you know, API is all that really is just it's simple computer language that allows your Versa system to talk with our system and the two to kind of communicate back and forth. But starting with those licensees renewing in January, their renewal notices, which I think go out in November, and the renewals thereafter, that language will indicate that usage of the CE Broker system is mandatory. We're kind of past the optional phase, so to speak, and they won't be able to renew their license unless all of their CE is uploaded into the CE Broker system. And kind of, you know, beyond that step, just know that, you know, CE Broker, we're committed to, you know, continuing to provide additional webinars for really any stakeholder, your licensees, education providers, whoever, beyond the two that are already scheduled that I mentioned previously. Then, you know, any other resources that you may need, whether that's, you know, customized tutorial videos, whatever you think will be helpful for licensees. But I will say that we do have quite a bit of information on our support page, a lot of, you know, step-by-step tutorials and guides, and licensees always have access to our support staff. And just, I think my final slide here is just diving into that component in a little bit more detail, because I'm proud of it and I think it's really helpful for your licensed population. But we take great pride in offering a dedicated in-house team of customer support specialists. So these are all folks that are, you know, Propellus employees. They're all based here in the United States. They are available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time, via email, live chat, and by phone. And like I said previously, we also have a robust resource library that has a bunch of step-by-step guides and tutorials and that sort of thing for folks that want to try and solve an issue on their own. But with that, you know, happy to answer any questions you all may have, or even jump over to the platform if you want to see any functionality there.
Hi, Jason, I have a question.
Sure.
First of all, I'm a stakeholder, so I'm one of the 16%. I was excited to have CE Broker and start using it. I did find it pretty easy to get started. One of the things I would really love for you as a feature for you guys to consider adding, for those of us that are dually licensed, we have to go in and separately add every single continuing ed. So I have to do everything twice, which is super duper fun. The other thing, just a little bit of feedback. It took me 3 weeks to get a response from customer service, 3 separate emails, and I didn't get a response until the third one in 3 weeks.
Thank you for sharing that feedback. Your first point, you said that was super duper fun. I know that was said in jest. Yeah, I think your idea of fun is different from mine, but I can understand how frustrating that would be to have to duly report, or I guess, report duplicatively all that information across those different licenses. I will say that, well, one, just generically, there are product improvements coming that will help streamline that process for licensees. Currently, and this is an interesting point, I think, there are two ways that completions can get into CE Broker. Either you self-report those completions yourself, as you did, or educational providers who are using the system can report those completions on behalf of their learners. When education providers report completions, those fall into we call an auto mapping feature. So those will filter to all the respective licenses for which that CE is applicable, whether it's across multiple licenses within the same state, or licenses across different states. So that feature does exist when providers are reporting those completions on your behalf. So that may incentivize licensees to find CE from providers that are reporting in a CE broker. I don't know. The other component to that is, as we work to address that friction point for licensees, one of the challenges that we have to overcome is kind of goes back to what I mentioned previously, in that CE broker is configured bespoke to each board's unique rules and regulations, right? CE for one licensee is not the same as CE for another licensee. And so as you experienced, there are a number of self-attestation questions that licensees have to answer before you get to the point where you're able to upload that evidentiary documentation corresponding with the course you completed. Because those attestation questions are different from board to board and state to state, we work to figure out from the board what you want those questions to say, what's important to the board. That's one reason why currently it is required for licensees to self-report individually, because the questions for one board are not the same as the questions for another board. So just to pull back the veil a little bit and give a little insight into why that continues to be a friction point, I just wanted to kind of highlight that for you there. Secondly, regarding your frustrating experience with our support staff, if you would please send me your license number and any kind of date information, email information regarding that experience that you have with our support team. We're always looking to improve those processes. I'm happy to circle up with our support team managers and maybe find out where gaps exist and how we can streamline those, because we certainly don't want licensees to wait 3 weeks for an answer.
Good, thank you.
And
Jody. Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, just to chime in to that question of the upload, that is something that we as staff had asked and talked to Jason about, and we sort of explored the possibilities, and it is, I can verify he is not making an answer up on the spot. That is a limitation of the holistic nature of CE broker, that because otherwise you could theoretically have a Virginia license and a Tennessee license. You could have a Tennessee electrician's license and try to upload that CE automatically, and it doesn't. But I know they are looking into other options, so we are interested in that too.
Yeah, thank you for that elaboration, Robert. And just one point, as I don't even want to call it a solution necessarily, but a one way to make that easier is I would recommend maybe just having a couple different tabs open using 2 different browsers, because cookies can get in the way. But if you're using, say, Chrome and Firefox, or Safari and Firefox, you can have both of those accounts pulled up for the respective licenses. And at least that'll make kind of copying and pasting the information over between the two a little less, burdensome. But just know that, like Robert said, we are working to find some easier ways to lift that burden on licensees.
Mr. Grubb, Jody Elder, also a licensee and so stakeholder here. I just want to commend you for the rollout. You've been incredibly helpful as far as working with staff as well, getting this information out to licensees. I listened to the entire 2-hour webinar on the way down this morning, and it was very helpful, very instructive, very thorough. And I really appreciate that, because I do think there are some licensees who are a little less tech savvy who need that kind of hand holding, and I appreciate you providing that. I have a question, which is, I know that 10 hours can roll over from one licensing cycle to the next. Can
Right.
licensees choose what they want to have rolled over, or is that automatically chosen by the system?
That's a great question. Let me pull up your board really quick because I think there is one exception to that rule. Because I know that there's one exception to the rollover. Let's see. Ethics can roll over to remaining hours required. Distinct populations can roll over to remaining hours required. Supervision can roll over to remaining hours
Would be
required.
human trafficking.
Yeah, that
That's
one's
right.
right every time.
That's
Well,
right.
So is there a way to signify in the system, like, these are the ones I want specifically to roll over?
The subject area in which you report the hours for the current cycle, the system will automatically try to apply those to the same subject area in a subsequent cycle. If that subject area for a subsequent cycle is full, then they would, roll over to one of the other essentially roll over to like the general CE requirements, I guess, so to speak.
Thank you.
Just to answer it in a slightly different way, because we had this same conversation too.
Okay.
The system will roll over the first 10 extra hours, essentially. So if you get all of your hours complete and you did it exactly 30, all the ones just what you needed, the next hour you report, whether it's ethics, whether it's supervision, whether it's general, that's the hour that carries over, because that's the next one that is the extra hour.
It's chronological.
It's chronological. And so if you report 10 hours, those are going to be what carries over, 10 general hours. And then you report another 5 ethics hours. You're just a super CE taker and you've now really gone over. Those 5 ethics hours won't carry over because you've already carried your 10. So, and that's.
So you maybe upload with some strategery.
So upload with some strategery of if once
what
you
I'm
get to your
hearing.
extra, upload the extra that you want to carry over. Because you don't need to upload ones that won't carry over. You're welcome to, but if you've met the rule, you don't have to keep going.
Well, personally, if this is going to be I love how y'all described it in the webinar, it's your file cabinet in the sky.
True.
And it's where I'm gonna
Very
put all
true.
my CEs, even if I don't
You
need
don't need
them. It's just my documentation purposes, but I like specifically want maybe supervision. If I get a ton of supervisioners, I want those specific ones to roll over. I don't get to choose that. The system chooses it based on when I upload it, is what you're saying.
Right. The
Okay.
first extra hours.
Thank you.
Dr. Elder, has there ever been a year since you got licensed that you didn't go over the 30 hour?
Nope,
limit?
every year I go over. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
cute, but thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Grevin, another question, couple questions. Will Price, public member, so not a stakeholder, in the extent that the others are. Is 15% the right number to have trained at this point for a January launch? Do we know how many renewals are coming in January to make sure it's ready to be rolled out and seamless for our folks?
Thank you for that question. I have not looked to see what how many licensees are set to renew in January. My assumption is that it would be, appropriately kind of balanced, over a 24-month, right? So 1/24 of the population or something to that effect is my guess, but I haven't looked at that specifically. But I will say that from our perspective, I mentioned we're working now with 300 boards nationwide, 5 million plus licensees. We have seen more adoption earlier from all the licensees across the Behavioral Health Executive Council than we've ever seen before. So I would say that it is kind of beating the trend, so to speak.
And you don't have to do the training to get started. That's not required. You can just log on and set up your account.
Gotcha.
But to that question, we typically have, we would expect around 4,000 renewals in a given month. And so 13,000 adopters is well ahead. One would hope that most of those 13,000 are the folks who are renewing in November, December, January.
And then what's the metric that this system gets like graded on for success? Like the ease of our folks that renewing, or the success? How do you grade success in the future?
Yeah,
On our April 10th board meeting, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because and the answer varies from board to board because different boards use our platforms in different ways. Your board and the other boards underneath the Behavioral Health Executive Council have chosen to mandate use of the platform and configure it in such where licensees cannot renew their license unless they're current. So some of the things that we would look for where, another board, it's completely optional for licensees, they wouldn't necessarily apply to you all. But from my perspective, I would say, we would look closely at support volume. So the number of inquiries that we get, whether via email, phone, or live chat regarding licensees having issues signing up or, confusion of their requirements, anything along those lines, that would certainly be a metric of success. And I'm sure the board staff would probably also have an eye on that sort of inbound volume as well. We would look at the time to compliance. So one of our goals in rolling out CE Broker with boards is ensuring that licensees aren't waiting until the last minute to renew their license, as so often is the case. And in our experience, we have found that usually when licensees wait until the last minute, one of the drivers of that is confusion and trepidation of what their requirements are, and trepidation in just not really being 100% certain they've done everything that's being required of them. And so sometimes that can lead to some procrastination from licensees. But using a system like ours, they get a lot of clarity, a lot of visibility and confidence in knowing that they've done what is being required of them. And oftentimes we see that licensees end up renewing earlier in that kind of renewal window, which I think for you all, it's like 75 days or something to that effect. So helping to ensure that they're not waiting to the last minute is another component. Thirdly, we would look at those compliance rates. Typically, those compliance rates would be derived from post-renewal auditing processes. And, you audit a small percentage of the population after the fact, and you can kind of, figure out, okay, we have 92%, 94%, whatever the compliance rate is of the population, you can kind of extrapolate that from that small sampling. Since this platform will require that they are complete before renewing, that those compliance rates will increase and kind of set a benchmark from wherever they currently are, as kind of derived from a post-renewal auditing process. That last response was a little convoluted. I'm happy to rephrase if you'd like, but.
Well, and I'm assuming part of why we've adopted this is to reduce the amount of time our staff is spending on it. And so that would be a metric I think we would want to hear from staff. It's like, has this gotten easier? Because that's the goal.
Absolutely. And to that point, one of the things that's going to be, I think, very beneficial for us and for licensees, right now, we will send out a renewal notice postcard and email to let folks know that their renewal is coming up. In addition, we will send a notice after their renewal if they don't successfully renew and they go delinquent. But now, in addition, the CE broker system will be sending notices to folks first if they have not created their CE broker account and they're coming up to their renewal. They will get emails, I forget exactly, but it's something like at 120 days, 90 days, 75 days, 60 days, 50 days, 40 days, 30 days, 10 days. They will get a lot of emails from CE broker saying, warning, 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 you have not created your account and you can't renew if you don't do that. In addition, if they have created their account, they will also get notice reminders about their renewal coming up and notice if they have not completed all the CE required. And so the licensees who have successfully created their account and have finished their CEs will not get any of these emails. And so they won't get bothered, but folks who have not will get lots of reminders.
That's right, Robert. And I think that's an important point. Licensees will stop getting the renewal reminders. And more pointedly, I think it's 150 days, 120 days, 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, 7 days, 2 days, I think. But yes, they will stop receiving the notifications either once they reach 100% compliance or they renew their license. And we get a new expiration date in the data file that we receive from the state.
That's negative reinforcement at its finest. Stop hearing from us if you do what you're supposed to do.
That's right. I will elaborate on that point just a little bit further. We see that those renewal emails have a really high open rate, about 54% or so, which if you know anything about email marketing and open rates, that's wildly high. Licensees find them pretty useful.
I just wanted to show for those that are participating or the attendees that are looking, this is the BHEX homepage. And if you scroll down a little bit, you can see our one of our landscape advertisements is CE Broker. You can click on that ad, for lack of a better term, and get to our CE Broker page. It gives you brief instruction on how to complete your account if you haven't already. There's a recording of the August 27th webinar, and there's also a transcript and a question and answer. And a note for if you're reading through the question and answers, you might see a question in there but no answer, and that's because it was answered live in the webinar. So go back and check that out. So just wanted to make sure that you knew that was there and how to get to it. And then if you want to register for October 29th, which sounds like it's pretty full now, or December 10th, you can click on the links that are on our page to register for those webinars.
Is there a late fee or some type of penalty for those who don't renew on time?
Yes, yeah, there is late fees for renewing late, and the longer it takes you, the higher the late fee. Testing my knowledge, I believe it starts off at 1.5. If you're within 6 months late, it's 1.5 times the renewal fee. If you're more than 6 months up to a year, it's 2 times the renewal fee because it's been a year. And then after a year, you will be expired, and then you have to reinstate your license, and it's significantly more expensive.
I have a question, just policy wise, because I guess I'm unclear how the audits happen currently. Do we as staff or a board need to develop a policy for what happens if we do a post-renewal audit and someone is found deficient?
Luckily, no. It will be, this, to your point earlier, this will be much easier for staff. Because right now what we do is we do a 5% pre-renewal audit. So 5% of our licensees get reviewed. We have one staff member who has to review all of those.
I've had 3. Have you never been audited before?
Okay.
Once.
Probably most MFT folks have, because your license numbers are small, and so y'all get back on the carousel more frequently. This way, everyone will have to show compliance before they can renew. So we will only be doing the post-renewal audit as a sort of spot check to make sure folks are not uploading fake certificates or pictures of their cats or their family. If they do that, then they have uploaded false documents and lied to the board, and that is a disciplinary action.
And a complaint is open.
A complaint will be open, and they will be subject to discipline for filing false information with the board.
It was after 48 hours.
Picture of your cat after 40 hours. If you have a really good description in the field, maybe.
Like, I'm gonna keep you on your toes.
Not one of those hairless, creepy ones.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion about CE Broker? Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, Mr. Grubb. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite. If you need me to come back, I'm happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Okay, I'm almost done with my board report. The last thing that I have on my board report is just about our committee assignments. the ones, there's mistakes all over the document that I typed up very hastily this morning and sent out. I misspelled Nicole's name, I misspelled Jody's name, and I put Mr. Lee Hampton's last name is Hamilton. So like, I just, anyways, I terribly apologize. And then I had Mr. Castro on there, like, I had him like on one committee twice. So like, anyways, lots of mistakes. Anyways, I have fixed those, and after the meeting, or maybe next week, Sarah will send out the real official committee assignments. One thing I did want to mention is that the Licensing Standards Committee, we'll continue to work on the supervisee survey. Once that is, we finish collecting data for that, we will work on then the supervisor survey. And then if we do decide to have conversations about hours and do research on hours, that's what all happens for our Licensing Standards Committee. So currently on that board, or on that committee, is myself, Lee Hampton, Nicole, and Russ, with James as the backup. But I'm going to give you all the opportunity to say, not it. So if anybody is thrilled about the idea of diving into this and you want to be on this committee, say now. If anybody is like, oh, please not me, then I understand that too, and say that now, and I will reassign.
Could that be done by email?
Oh, yeah.
If they want some time.
Okay, yes, we can do that by email. We'd have to bring it. And then the Professional Development Committee, just again, this is more for kind of education for kind of our new fellas. For the Professional Development Committee, that they do a lot of work with our CEs. James, I have put you there, and William, I have also put you there. Ethics Committee, I don't think there's any changes to that. That has stayed the same. The Rules Committee, James, I have put you on the Rules Committee. And then the Outreach Committee, there were no changes there either. So anyways. Oh my gosh, there's one more error. Anyways, I will fix it and send it to you again. Okay. I will get this document right. Okay, go ahead.
Excuse me, some time ago, I sent out a multi-page document about the MFT boards, committees, and the rules that you might need to be looking over about that committee. Does anyone want me to resend that as you look at what your assignments might be? Okay, thank you.
I do think it would be helpful. Well, I do think it'd be helpful for all the committees to meet sometime between now and our next meeting. Like for example, on the Outreach Committee, I feel like we've kind of wrapped up some things. And so I'd love for us to have conversations about where we're going next, you know? So I do think it would be good for all the committees to kind of meet, especially now that you'll have new members, and maybe discuss where you're headed. What does your committee want to work on? Where do y'all want to go? So, okay, I'm now going to move it to the, what are we on? 4B. 4B, report from the board's delegates to BHEC. That is myself and Mr. Hampton, who is not here. The only thing that I want to say, and then we'll just kind of see if you'll have any questions about any of the documents. Is one of the things that the BHEC did work on this last quarter was expanding or creating rules related to emerging practices. And basically, we met with the standardization committee, which is all the BHEC board plus the actually it's all just the professional members. The professional members of the BHEC, as well as the associations, so like TMFT, TCA, you know, just anyway. So we met the standardization committee, and what we talked about was creating rules related to the emerging practices. And essentially what that committee decided is maybe going more towards guidance as opposed to actually creating new rules. And so Robert put together some guidance, and BHEC will be looking that over probably at the next time the standardization committee meets, I assume. So anyways, that's all that I have to say. What questions do y'all have? And do y'all have any questions about our documents, or do you just want me to turn it over to you, Robert? Or do you have anything you want to say?
No, nothing in particular. Happy to answer questions. If y'all have anything about the work of BHEC, we're plugging along.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Okay. So on the third quarter measures, I noticed we're still experiencing a backlog in the legal review. And I know we talked about that the legislative appropriations request would ask for additional staff attorneys. I'm just curious where we're at with that process.
So the legislature did, our budget, was good. We got our base budget and we got half of the extra money for filling empty staff positions that we asked for, which is not nothing. And so, we have dedicated that money really to hiring 2 additional staff attorneys. We have successfully hired one who's starting next week. And we are going to, do our best to hire another. So anybody out there hear that? We've got a job posting for an attorney. We'd love to have you. The pending complaint numbers continue to be a concern, not for lack of staff's work. We're really proud of our staff. Last year, so FY '24, we received a record number of 600 complaints. And closed 470 of them or some odd. Well, in fiscal year '25, our staff stepped up and closed over 600 complaints. The problem is we received a record number 800 complaints in FY '25. And so if we keep receiving more, thus that is how backlogs get created, because we keep trying to step up and resolve more, and we are finding ways to make our process more efficient so that we can get through cases faster. We honestly don't know why we're getting more complaints now. I'm sure it is partly the growth in licensees. We have so many more licensees. That does not explain the sharp growth that we've experienced.
Is there any trends that you've noticed in complaint types? or anything
We
like
are
that?
looking, but no, the same 3 topics that are usually the highest complaint getters are still the same 3 topics. Standards of practice, sexual misconduct, and unprofessional conduct. Yeah, we really don't, we haven't identified any trends yet, why this might be happening.
So is the 600 for MFT or for all?
Sorry, for all of BHEC. And that is one good thing for y'all as the MFT board. Corresponding smaller number of licensees, smaller number of complaints. So y'all do not have the size of the backlog. Your portion of that is very small.
Are we proportional to the other complaints or?
No, I
actually
think, I
less.
think you have about somewhere between 20 and 30 complaints as opposed to the
Well,
800.
just
But
like from
he's
a
asking
licensee.
proportionally, we're actually did like,
No,
we have
you're-
less than the psychology board, and there's even fewer of them than there are of us, that's right. Woo.
Yeah.
So it's their fault, not.
No, it's our proportion is even smaller when you take into account that we're fewer in numbers. Did you get your question answered?
I did, and the reason I wanted to highlight it is because I don't want staff held accountable for something that is not your
I know.
fault. If you had the staff you needed, you could clear that backlog in a heartbeat because you're so efficient. So I feel like that was worth highlighting.
Am I skipping ahead if I ask about Senate Bill 1080?
I will talk about that at that.
Yes, okay, got it.
at 6.
The only other thing that I had from the BHEC is, is the board familiar with the Chili's, is it Chili's versus Salazar?
We say Childs. I don't
Childs?
actually know. That's it could be Chili's.
Okay, I don't know, that's how Daryl put it, okay, maybe it's Childs.
It's from, it's an individual from Colorado. I don't know how to pronounce it. But, so yeah, this is a case out of Colorado that is being heard by the US Supreme Court. It will have very big impacts to the landscape of administrative regulation. Essentially, it is challenging Colorado's legislative statutory ban on conversion therapy as a violation of free speech. And thus it sort of tees up a really thorny question for the US Supreme Court about the expanse of free speech versus the idea of something called professional speech, which has never been recognized by the US Supreme Court. And so this may be a chance for them to either recognize it or to really reaffirm there is no regulatable professional speech, that it is free speech. And so that will, I think I don't want to overblow the impacts too much, because boards like ours will still have the authority to regulate conduct and licensing requirements and professional standards, things like informed consent and dual relationships. All of that is still very much conduct. However, it will mean that there are certain, there are potentially certain areas of practice that in your experience as professionals that are therapies, that if it just involves speaking, we may or may not be able to regulate it.
At the risk of bringing up everyone's favorite topic, I was also curious how that would impact coaching as an industry potentially.
It would further protect coaching, I suppose, from, well,
Depends on the
actually,
decision, I guess.
I don't know that it would really change the relationship of coaching as it is now.
Well, we've been unable to have any sort of like certification, licensure, whatever, because you can't regulate free speech. But if we made coaching its own thing,
well,
it could regulate the professional conduct, right?
Not exactly.
Okay.
So I think the legislature, you know, we've got 2 lawyers here and we'll give you 5 opinions. The legislature could choose to regulate life coaching and require a license, although probably most of that would be a use of title regulation. It would be saying you cannot call yourself a life coach unless you have a license. They've not chosen to do that. That would still, I mean, I guess you're really pushing that's an interesting legal question of could the decision of Childs v. Salazar, if it really went far into the idea of free speech, could it prohibit states from regulating the use of professional titles, whether life coach or therapist or counselor or psychologist? Maybe. This is why it's such a big case to watch and see what the Supreme Court says. Because when it is not affirmative conduct, when it is simply somebody speaking, that's the question, where can states regulate? Now, I will also say a limiter on what comes out of the Supreme Court will also be, the law does not say all speech cannot be regulated whatsoever, even free speech. Even the ideas of free speech, there are time, place, manner regulations. And so that, I would imagine they will expound upon when even free speech, a state may effectively regulate.
Any further questions about this topic or anything from the packet related to the board meetings? Yeah. Okay, then I'm gonna need a break soon. Do you want to take a break now, or do you want to take a break after Sarah's board administrator report? Whichever. How long is your board administrator report? 5 minutes. Okay, let's do that, and then so go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. Board members, you were provided a number of reports on the events that VHEC staff has held. May 19th leadership listening event, the social media and tech assisted services guidelines that were updated by this board in May were posted. There was an insights over lunch on July 13th. I'd like to show you. So this is again the council's webpage. I'm clicking on the masthead to get back to the home page so you can see how it's navigated. On our statutes and rules page, these blue sky buttons are on the left-hand side. We have consolidated rule books, and I thank Brenda Skift for updating those. Certain rules became effective in July, and the consolidated rule books that are easily searched in one PDF for most of the rules that you need were updated and posted about July 31st. There's not a July 38th. Yet. And going back to the webpage, if you're, I hope that you're already signed up for email updates, but if you aren't and all this CE broker stuff is swirling around and other things are happening, I went to the left-hand side, quick links toward the bottom to click on email updates. There's a handy online form. You'll fill out that web form and click on submit. It will send you a confirmation email to your email inbox. Confirm or follow the prompts to confirm your subscription, and then you'll start getting emails from the board. I think that's all I want to show people is how to get to those two things because they were relatively new. That concludes my report unless you have any questions about any items that I included.
Okay, let's take, is a 5-minute break long enough? 10 minutes, 5 or 10? It'll be 5. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. Do I have to hit the gavel again?
Go for it.
Do what you want. Break in session. Okay, we are back in session. As far as this is. Okay, so we're picking up with agenda item 4D, reports from committees. And so Dr. Elder will give the report from the ethics committee.
Okay, so we met twice since our last full board meeting. We met on July 30th, where we discussed establishing criteria for supervisors who are providing practice monitoring. And that is item 13 in your board packet. So I'm not going to go into it, but we did develop those and get some attorney weigh in on that. Thank you. We reviewed 3 ethics cases that had already been adjudicated and had agreed orders in place. And we agreed with all of the decisions. Some things that we were looking at for future changes to the process is that if a licensee is dually licensed, let's say they're LPC and they're LMFT, and they violate rules of both boards, then, and they were working under both of those licenses at the time that they violated rules, then what we're asking is if it's possible to have a representative of both boards at the ISC, because what has typically happened is that whatever board the complaint is filed under, they would hold their ISC first, and then they would come up with a decision, and then the other board would just kind of say, yes, that too. And because we want reciprocal agreed orders. And so what happens if the 2 boards don't agree on what they should be? It would help if representatives of both boards were at the original ISC. So that was something we had kind of talked about. And then we want to keep on the radar for very egregious violations that we can require personal therapy as part, not just practice monitoring like for a probated suspension, but we can also require that they do their own personal work. So, yeah.
If the practice monitor said, I think this should be a condition, is that something that can be added after the fact?
Don't.
So the standard language we typically use in the orders that have practice monitoring, it does talk about that the practice monitor can, I mean, the whole purpose of it is if they realize there are additional steps that the licensee or the person being supervised, supervisee, or monitoree, I guess, is there are things that they should do to become more competent. They need to do those things, and if not, then we can take further action against them. And there's also things including, I think it says competency as well as if they indicates sufficient concerns or need to impose further requirements and restrictions, they can also impose those. And if they're not willing to comply with those, we take further action. So it's supposed to be an active monitoring where it's not just, oh, you did this one bad thing, I'm going to monitor you to make sure you do it. Oh, I now realize you're doing many bad things. Let's fix all of those. And if they say no, the whole purpose of it is the monitors to make sure they're doing things correctly. And if they're not willing to do them, the orders actually say we can suspend them and then take further action and even, impose further restrictions or revoke their license if they're not willing to comply. Because the whole point is to get them back practicing appropriately. So yeah, we would try to put some teeth to it, but I mean, the purpose is not to be heavy-handed, just to get them, back to practicing correctly.
Short answer is yes.
Yes, short answer is yes, but you asked the lawyer, so you can know along.
So that was our July 30th meeting, and then we met again on August 7th, where we actually conducted 5 informal settlement conferences. And in that time, there was 1 reprimand with CEs, 1 reprimand with practice monitoring, 1 probated suspension, and 2 license revocations. And one of the things that we talked about as a result of those ISEs was perhaps expanding our kind of just getting creative with our sanctions and including required peer consultation as part of it. Like maybe it's just, it wasn't an egregious violation that would warrant probated suspension and practice monitoring, but we do want eyes on their practice and peer consultation.
Any other questions for Dr. Elder? I also just realized y'all are sitting in the dark. Do you want the lights on above you?
We do that so it looks better on the video for everybody.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay. Okay, never mind then. Okay, up next is the report from the Licensing Standards Committee. We met on June 20th and we heard 4 cases. We heard 4 cases with basically just people who did not meet the licensing requirements. And so we met to see if it was questionable to see whether or not they actually met our licensing requirements. One that I want to particularly draw attention to is just that sometimes we see where when you turn in your supervisory, not your supervisory burn form, like your report of your hours, what's that form called? The supervisory.
Verified experience form.
Yes, the verified experience form. I cannot stress enough to any associates and supervisors that are listening to make sure that you fill out that form correctly. I also cannot stress enough to supervisors to make sure that you are signing off on their hours log every single week. So often, if there is a problem with somebody getting their license on time, it is because they sent in a form with the wrong dates on it, or they have reported hours from like multiple supervisors, or they've reported on the form the hours from their grad program and the hours they required afterwards. Like a lot of times it's those mistakes. And then when we ask for their hours report, they don't have one, or it doesn't make sense, or they send us, I don't know. Like anyway, so I just cannot stress how important it is to track your hours, sign off on them every single week, and make sure you fill out that form correctly. Supervisors should be filling out that form and signing it as opposed to letting supervisees do it. If you are uncertain how to fill out that form, use the contact me, ask staff, but just make sure that form is filled out correctly so that your license is not delayed. So, anyhow, any questions about that? Okay, up next is the outreach committee. We so far, we actually did not meet. We've been working on the telehealth guidelines, updating those, updating the social media guidelines we've already done. So we didn't actually get to meet last quarter. We did send out the supervisee survey, which I'm really excited about, and that is open until October 15th, I believe, right? So far as of Monday, we have 114 responses, which is just like thrilled, that we have 114 responses. So
I checked this morning, there were 179.
oh my gosh. Okay.
Wow.
Wow, that is amazing. Given that we only have we have 900 associates, and I'm not sure how many people we have who have been under supervision in the last 5 years, but still I'm pretty pleased with 179. So that's excellent. Okay, so I don't have anything else to say. Any questions? Okay. Up next is the report from the Professional Development Committee, and that is Dr. Barty.
Yeah, I'll kick it off and I'm gonna turn it back to you.
Okay.
Because you did the lion's share of this. We met in July, mainly to go over the results of the CE survey that we sent out in the spring. There's a document that has a summary that I put in there, but there's the white paper that is item 12 in the agenda. And so I'm gonna turn it over to you and let you kind of
Yeah.
wax eloquent.
Do we want to talk about agenda item number 12 now, or do y'all want to wait till we get there in our agenda? We'll wait. Okay. Okay, so we will come back to that. And then finally, the report from the Rules Committee. We met and we're about to go over the rules that we talked about. So that's it. Okay, we've already done agenda item 5. So that means we're on to agenda item number 6. And so Robert, I'm turning it over to you.
So just an update, on the legislative session, we talked about our budget. We got a good budget. We did, also get, funds to, start doing a continuous query to the NPDB, National Practitioner Data Bank, which is something that we've sort of been statutorily required to do, but not had any funding to do. So now we have the funding, so that's good. We also have two projects related to licensing exams. The legislature gave us funding to pursue the idea of developing a psychology licensing exam, which I'm happy to tell you more about now or really offline. It's not going to involve you guys, but we are not definitely creating an exam. We are designing a potential exam, and then the legislature will decide next session whether, once we see what the cost is and the benefit, whether they want to fund that. As a bit of a surprise to us, they also gave us money to pursue creating a Spanish language social work exam, which we had not been prepared for, and we don't own the existing the existing social work exams, and so we'll be working with their association on how to accomplish that. So that may, how those projects go, we will see, and we'll report back just so you know what your staff is getting involved with.
Would that be the first Spanish translated exam?
It would be the first Spanish language social work exam. The LPCs have a Spanish language exam. They've had it for several years in use in Puerto Rico, and they're just rolling it out nationally this fall.
I will add, though, that it can't be a translated exam, that when it comes to exam construction, you can't just take the English version and then like translate it to Spanish and be like, we're done. You have to actually develop, like they would have to develop an entirely new exam in Spanish, which is, I did not know until we started having this conversation.
Which is why, unfortunately, the funding we were given by the legislature was, I think they probably assumed we could just translate. It is not sufficient funds to create an entire exam. So we're figuring that out.
Nicole, do you have a question?
Well, I think this is where we talk about Senate Bill.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, okay,
Sorry.
Other noteworthy bills from the legislature, the compacts for both counseling and social work did not pass. The legislature had 23 compacts and only adopted one, and the governor vetoed that. So I don't believe compacts are going anywhere in Texas soon.
What was the one that vetoed, if you don't mind me asking?
The one was the cosmetology compact. There was also a bill that failed that would have expanded reimbursement in Medicaid for associates. It did make it all the way through the House to the Senate. So maybe next legislative session, it'll go farther. Bills that did pass, there were a number of administrative bills regarding efficiency audits and oversight of rulemaking that we as staff will be engaged in. So just so y'all know, we will be doing more. There will be more oversight of our work by the legislature and the governor's office. Ones that might be interesting to sort of professionally, there were SB 12 is the primary focus. It prohibits social transitioning, support of social transitioning in public schools, but it also has a large component about parental consent to medical and mental health treatment in schools. For anybody who's listening, I really recommend you look up the TEA guidelines and draft rule that they published on September 11th. It goes into much more detail because there are different levels of what are considered services, some of which general caretaking of students, helping them if they scrape their knee, giving them a Band-Aid, checking if they're okay. That does not require any consent. Then there's a mid-tier that is sort of general mental health and school counseling, suicide prevention screeners, things that a lot of our licensees would do that you presume the parents opt in unless they say otherwise. But then there is a category of sort of more individualized interventions and treatments that require getting affirmative parental consent before you
start doing that. So recommend you look at those rules from TEA. Then there were two bills, SB 1080. If I'm remembering the numbers correctly. Is that one of the military ones or the criminal background?
Criminal
But
background.
there were two military licensing bills. Just so y'all know, that expanded the waivers and exemptions and credits for military service members, their spouses, and veterans. And so now any one of those three who comes from military service members and their spouses, if they come from a state with a license, and they're as a marriage and family therapist, and they have a similar scope of practice, which is essentially all states that have MFTs, then they automatically get a license with us. They have to pass the background checks and do a few paperwork things, but we'll no longer look at their training requirements. Similarly, if they wish to practice in Texas just recognized by their other state license, they can do that. And it used to be for 3 years, now it's indefinitely. And so that's a pretty major change to our licensing rules for a relatively small population.
Is that only for active duty, or is that reservists and others?
The practicing without a license in Texas is only for active duty and their spouses while stationed in the state.
Got it. So once they retire, they have to get licensed in Texas if they, yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Got it.
And so you mean like seeing clients in Texas under a different license?
Correct. So, and then SB 1080 is related to when licensing of individuals with prior criminal histories. It does two things. One, it expanded a little bit the list of felonies for which we must deny a license. But it also created a requirement for giving a provisional license to someone who is incarcerated who meets license requirements. Now that's really more focused on folks who are in TDCJ and going through a professional development program, more trade crafts. I don't think it will really apply to us, but it could in the future should a prison develop that program.
I was curious what they expanded to include. If it's too long, we don't need to go over that, but.
It is one of the proposed rules, one of the BHEC rules, right?
Yeah.
So I'd have to find it.
That's okay.
But it's mostly violent felonies.
Okay.
And
One of the big changes, especially with the BHEC rule, is it was a mandatory required revocation once they are put in prison, and now it's permissive. So we are no longer necessarily required to revoke them, but we can still revoke them. It just took the shall out and put more of a may in there. Now it is a shall if it relates directly to the license practice. So if you had an LMFD and you commit Medicaid fraud, there's another statute also that says we have to revoke. But if that obviously relates directly to it while you got imprisoned, the shall applies. But if it's I got a DWI and I went and or 3 of them and I went to prison, that doesn't necessarily, that could relate actually now that I say, because 3 is, let's just say you got 2 and you did prison time. That is, we may revoke them. We're not required to revoke them.
Thank you.
Going back to the military licensing really quick, if somebody were to file a complaint against somebody who was practicing in Texas with a Texan, but they're licensed elsewhere, would the other board hear that complaint? Or would they?
hopefully we would work with that other state. The statute requires us to maintain complainant information on those individuals. So they will be in our system as a out-of-state recognized individual.
Okay.
And so we can take some action. Obviously, they don't have a license for us to discipline. But we would work with the other state, and essentially you are to hold that recognition, you have to be in good standing. And we would consider that to no longer be in good standing.
And so do those people have to like register with us in some way, or do they?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it's essentially a registration.
Okay.
They get a letter from us saying, we recognize you for
Okay.
this practice.
So they can't just move here, start practicing and never let us know.
No, they have to let us know.
Okay, cool. Okay. Any other questions on the agenda item 6, the updates?
That's a lot of work for you guys, because now you have to make our rules comply with all these new laws. Sorry.
You'll see some in a minute.
Okay.
On that later.
Moving on to matters for potential board action. Up first, licensing matters. Ms. Inman has decided to rescind her appeal. So we no longer need to hear agenda item 7A. So we will move on to agenda item number 8, examination matters. Any questions, comments, discussion here?
Which one are we on? I'm sorry. I got a little stumped by the fact that I read all that for nothing. Oh my gosh. Okay. Which one are we on?
8.
Okay.
Review and board review and possible action.
Oh,
related
oh,
to the board's direction.
Yes, I did want to say, Ms. Fazel, thank you for following up and making sure we got the comments on the JPs. I know they've been missing for a while, so thank you for your diligence in getting that restarted.
Then we'll move on to agenda item number 9, enforcement matters. Up first is board review and possible action regarding contested cases. We do have one case before us, correct? Am I reading that right? Yeah. Yeah, we have one SOA case. Basically, we just need to just, we just need to vote to revoke. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, if I can give just a
Yes,
brief
please.
summary. So, this matter was docketed at State Office of Administrative Hearings, SOA. Notice was given, the respondent did not show up, and so it was, default order was issued, remaining it back to the agency to review. The short of it is the respondent had their LMFT license revoked in California for sexual misconduct, and so we are staff is also recommending this as well. It's my understanding that an informal settlement conference was convened prior to this, and I believe Doctors Elder and Merchant were participants, so they should recuse from any particular vote on it. But what is in the board's materials is a proposed order that would be revoking the respondent's license. It would need to be voted on here by the board to recommend to the council, and then at the council meeting in October, they would look at the recommendation from the board as well as the record from SOA and agree whether or not to also revoke. So it's pretty straightforward. We should ask to see if the respondent is in the audience. They did not attend the SOA hearing, so I don't know that they are present, but I don't necessarily see them, but if they
Mr.
are.
Isaac Carrion, if you're attending, would you use the raised hand feature? I see none.
Then is there any discussion? Does somebody want to make a motion to revoke Mr. Carrion's license?
Make the motion to revoke his license.
Okay, and Dr. Barty seconds. All those in favor of revoking Mr. Carrion's license, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous of the people who voted.
Did we give Mrs. L?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you vote, Mrs. L?
You raised her.
She raised her hand, yes. Okay. Okay, then there board review and possible action regarding orders executed by the board. There are none, so that concludes number 9. So let's move on.
I thought there were 2. Wells and Martin in our materials, no? Maybe I'm reading stuff I don't need to read again.
So
There's an agenda item where the board executes the order, and then you have in your packet where Daryl on behalf of the board has executed the order.
Oh,
And those are also included in the public because we give public notice of the disciplinary action and the order. So do you have any questions about either of those orders? Or any of the reporting from the enforcement staff?
Okay, then we'll move on to agenda item number 10, rulemaking. So just kind of for the, just for our new board members, as well as any of the public that are listening. The way that rulemaking works is the board generally proposes a rule, then it goes to, BHEC, and BHEC also, approves the rule, and then it goes to the governor's office, and then it goes to public comment. After it goes to public comment, it comes back to our board, for adoption. And then if we vote to adopt it, then it moves on to BHEC, and then if they vote to adopt it, then it moves on to, becoming rule. Okay, so this first part, 10A, these adoption of rules, these are already rules they've come before the board once, we've proposed them to BHEC, they've been open for public comment, and now they're back in front of us. And so we have 3 rules that we're looking at. 801.4, relationship with clients. That basically, just as a reminder, that is to kind of standardize the rules across boards, so that really it doesn't change. The only part that really changes is establishing a positive relationship, which so if I have a client and Nicole has a client, and it's the same client, that Nicole will reach out to me and I'll reach out to Nicole. We'll get a signed release of information and we'll try to cooperatively collaborate in some sort of form or fashion.
And we
Yes.
did get some public comment about this. Do you want to talk about that now or do you want to wait? Sorry.
We can talk about it or not talk about it, whatever y'all want to do.
I felt like some of the public comment was a little confused about, obviously, if, in the example that you just made, if our shared client didn't tell us that we're sharing the client, then, the board will not assume that we messed up. And from some of the public comment, it seemed as though, the practitioners felt like somehow they were being expected with this new rule to read minds and magically know things that they can't know if they weren't told.
Yeah.
And that's not what the rule is intended to do. That's all.
Agreed.
I would also note, y'all, got this was a change that's being proposed across all 4 boards, and there were similar comments raised with those boards as well. I would note the way the rule reads is you're to request release from the client. If the client refuses and tells you, I do not want you to speak to the other licensee, then you have fulfilled your obligation.
Right.
It is not, you're not meant to strong arm the client into making them sign a consent.
I do appreciate somebody brought up, like, this could be coercive, that they don't want it to become where we coerce our clients into having to sign consents in order to like protect ourselves. And we would never expect you to coerce a client. If a client says, I don't want you to have, I don't want you to consult with my other therapist or if the other, whoever, like, then you just document that in your note and you say you requested release of information and they declined, and then that's it. That's simple. So. And again, I don't think that this is a whole lot different from what the rule has always been. I mean, the rule has always said that if you have a client that is being seen by another treatment provider, that you immediately make effort to try to collaborate with that person. This just adds the collaborative language piece of it. It's really what this rule is doing. Any further discussion or comments or concerns or? Then I will entertain a motion to accept this rule.
I can move to accept.
Okay, Dr. Elder seconds. All those in favor of adopting this rule, raise your hand. Okay, that is unanimous. Okay, let me go back to my agenda. We are moving then on to 801.142, supervised clinical experience requirements. Basically, this just says that a supervisor may share a remediation plan. So if they create a remediation plan for a supervisee and that supervisee goes to a different supervisor, if they have a second supervisor, this allows that first supervisor to share with a subsequent or concurrent supervisor.
Did you say may?
Yes, may. So it's not
Or
shall.
must?
It's not must or shall, it's may.
Item 10.
So there are 2, there's 801.142 and 801.143.
Oh, I got the wrong one.
143 is the supervisor, and that's the may. So that allows supervisors
to speak with each other and to share that information.
I wrote them backwards then. I apologize.
142 is the rule about associates, and they are required to share. Now, I did want to note for the board, this again is a sort of general principle that is being established across all of the boards. The LPC board received a number of comments about this, as well as other issues related to the supervisee-supervisor relationship that ultimately led them to withdraw the rules, and they're going to tackle more holistically. The particular issue that related to this, in number 10 on 801-142, the additional language is about receiving the remediation plan and sharing that with any other current or future supervisors. Some of the comments that were received raised the concern that this requirement and the language make a remediation plan feel like a disciplinary action that follows you wherever you go, that you have to then continue. Now, it's certainly not meant that way, and there's not intended for remediation plans to be seen that way. But it is I could certainly see the argument that was raised by some of these comments, that particularly the last phrasing, as well as any relevant documents regarding successful completion, makes it seem like that even if you've had a remediation plan and you're completely done with it, you still must tell your next supervisor about it. Frankly, it's up to the board to decide what's most appropriate. I can certainly see the argument both ways, that on the one hand, this could be good information, even if you are done and completed the remediation, to share with your new supervisor so they know where you've been and how to adjust their supervision. I can also see the argument that if it was a problem that has been fixed, why must the associate be obligated to share that going forward? So for this 801-142, your options as the board are to adopt it as is. You could adopt it without the last phrase in 10, which would then suggest that it's just if you still have the remediation plan, it's not complete, you must share it. Or if you are dissatisfied with the rule, you can request to withdraw it and try again.
Remind me where this rule came from.
The quadrennial rule review,
Okay.
it was part of some of the comments through that process about supervisors not knowing when people change what they're coming from.
I think it's interesting that when they submit their final hours, there's a line item on there that says, was there a remediation plan? Is that not,
It asks the supervisor to attest if there are any reservations that this person is ready for independent practice, I believe. I'll double check.
okay. But does the board, are they required to see a remediation plan? Or do they assume that the remediation plan is solely between the supervisor and the associate? That they come up with a remediation plan, and as long as they're satisfied that the board never hears that there was ever a need for a remediation plan.
The supervisor's in charge of deciding if the
It
person, go ahead.
it is, to Sarah's point, if the supervisor documents they have concerns, then they must attach the remediation plan to us. But if the associate has successfully completed remediation and the supervisor says they have no concerns about them becoming fully licensed, we do not request that they send us any remediation plans.
So the board that y'all would never know if there was a remediation plan, if that is selected, yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Help me understand the remediation plan,
It's like a performance improvement plan.
but is it like because of a complaint, or is it just because,
No.
hey, you need to work on your bedside manner, let's do these 5 things.
I've done one with a supervisee who just wasn't doing his notes in a remotely timely manner. He got like 3 weeks behind at one point, and I gave him like a verbal, he got caught up. A month later, he was almost a month behind. And then I was like, okay.
Okay.
So
It's not a defined term related to something specific.
no, if it had been more serious, and I have had one where it was way more serious. The long and the short of it is I terminated with her and I wouldn't be her supervisor anymore. So there's more than one way to handle it, and there's like different degrees of severity.
So if there's a deficiency in a certain area of practice, then you can come up with a remediation plan.
The rule specifically says the supervisor determines the LMFT associate may not have the therapeutic skills or competencies to practice marriage family therapy under an LMFT license. The supervisor must develop and implement a written plan for mediation. So they just, again, if they are lacking the therapeutic skills or competencies to practice.
But to your point, that never goes to the board. If it's successfully remediated, they get the skills they need, the supervisor can click check, and then the board never knows that there was a remediation plan. That's part of their development process.
And I guess what I was thinking, that if the board doesn't track that, then it would not be necessary for the next supervisor to track that if it's been successfully completed, right? I mean, why continue to track something if it's been completely self-contained? But this says, as well as any relevant documentation regarding successful completion of this remediation plan, that the associate must.
But it's to the new
Provide that.
supervisor.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the question is, do we want to strike out that last phrase?
Or do you want to turn the must into a may? I mean, you've got a couple of options.
Or do you say an uncompleted remediation plan? Like, so if it's
Unresolved.
completed, if it's resolved, you don't have to pass it on. But if it's unresolved,
So devil's advocate, just from remembering the last conversation. I'm an associate and my supervisor wants to establish a mediation plan, but I disagree because I think I'm doing fine. So I go find another supervisor.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it was resolved because I went and found another supervisor.
That's right.
Which is what we're trying to, this is the problem we're trying to fix. It's a
Right.
loophole.
but I think what you're saying is that like in the associate's mind, it's resolved. I changed supervisors.
And
so
so
they
then my
might-
new supervisor doesn't have a problem.
Because the new supervisor has no idea what went on,
Could be.
unless we do require that the conversation between supervisors occur.
Okay, I'm thinking about how to enforce this though, because okay, I'm the supervisee and I'm going from the supervisor
A.
that I have an issue with.
Mhm.
Hi, I have an issue with you. So I go to a new supervisor. Hi. You have no idea that he had an issue with me.
Right,
So we're relying on me to tell you.
to be forthright.
But this rule is by the board. And the board has no idea any of this is happening. So how do we enforce that?
When they apply, it depends on who's submitting the hours, and if he checks the box,
He has to
I
say
did have
no.
reservations. All of a sudden, we now know, well, let's take a look at that remediation plan, and then we see, did you complete it? No, she ran away from it or whatever. But, so, I mean, that's how we would find
Got
out.
Wait, hold on, I'm sorry, but why is he gonna submit it if she's moved to a different supervisor?
Because it was unresolved. And he
Well,
doesn't know.
Well,
that.
No, but
because they
in the
collect
application.
hours. They collect hours under supervisor A. And supervisor A has to attest to the number of hours that
Okay.
they supervise, even if it's like 20 hours.
Yeah.
And then after 20 hours, they want to jump ship.
And I think the concerns that were raised in the public comments were the feeling that this would be some black mark that carries with the associate to send on this remediation plan. Certainly, I feel like in my experience, I have talked to, we have had candidates who've had multiple supervisors, and some had concerns. And we then spoke with their subsequent supervisors who have said, oh yeah, they told us about that and we really didn't see it and they were fine. We loved them. We just feel like that other supervisor was the wrong place for them. So there certainly will be supervisors that this is not a problem for. They will not hold it against their associate. There may be supervisors out there that do improperly use the fact that there was a remediation plan to penalize the associate in some ways. I would hazard that those type of supervisors would find ways to do that anyway, if that's their bent. I hope they are far and few between.
How often are you changing supervisors?
It's not super duper common. Sometimes you'll switch if, let's say when you get started, you're not sure what you want to specialize in. And so your first supervisor doesn't specialize in the thing you've decided maybe 1,000 hours in that you want to specialize in. That's a totally reasonable, common, it happens, but I wouldn't say everybody does it. That's a very innocuous reason to switch supervisors. Sometimes your supervisor will retire, also less common. Usually they know going into it.
But moving,
Yeah, you move.
yeah, you move, you change jobs, you know. things like
Changing
that.
jobs is probably there are, I would say probably a little more of half of the agency jobs. It's a perk or a benefit, kind of like a 401k. If you have a supervisor who's sort of built in and paid for. So a lot of associates are like, oh, that'll save me several $100s every month. But if that person gets a new job, or if you switch jobs, all of a sudden you have to get, so it's not something that everybody does.
I'll also add that we collect a lot of this data on the supervising survey. So like we asked them about switching supervisors. And I think we also asked about remediation plans, if I remember correctly. So it's, again, I don't remember what data, I don't remember for sure, but it also could be that once we have that data, that might shed some additional light on this. If we were to, are we allowed to table this? Like, are we allowed to say, we want to make all these changes for everything and we want more time to think about 10?
So you could adopt the rule, but strike 10.
But then would we be allowed to come back to it later, or would we have to start the entire rule process over again?
Either way, you'll have to start the rule process. If you don't adopt it today, it expires and it will have to be reproposed at the January meeting and go through the public comment process.
Oh my gosh, okay.
If you strike 10 today, then it doesn't have to come back through everything.
If you strike, yes, if you strike 10 entirely or strike the last clause in 10, either option, the rule can continue as you've crafted it. And in either case, you could come back and propose a new rule later.
I personally am comfortable with the language.
Okay.
If a supervisee is coming to me and as part of that interview process or part of that onboarding, you know, was there any other kind of remediation that you have, they can lie to me. I don't know, unless I do contact the prior supervisor. But I would want to know that, yeah, I got dinged on this a little bit and I went through this and I think I got through it on the other side. I went, great, good to know. And then I move on.
Yeah.
But it falls into the category of almost like informed consent. I'd like to know who they are and what they're bringing into my supervisory relationship. And if they have successfully completed something, which is what this is, relevant documentation regarding successful completion of the plan, I'm all over that. I said, good for you, great.
Well, I agree, because I think the ability to non-defensively receive and integrate feedback into our practice is a hallmark of a good clinician. And if somebody comes to me and says, I had a remediation plan, I learned and I fixed it, I'm like, bring it on, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I see this as a little bit more of a positive than a dark cloud, because I think that speaks to growth I think that speaks to maturity. Like if there was a remediation plan for an issue, they did work through that, that I think that speaks in their favor.
Same.
And I think it's admirable. So I'm okay leaving it in there the way it's written.
So our goal, like what we're here for is to protect the public. And so as we think about 10, are there ways, like how does 10 protect the public?
I think it protects the public because if I, as the supervisor, think that something rises to the level of requiring any sort of remediation plan, I've only done that because I'm trying to protect the public from a clinician that has a learning edge and needs a little bit of support. So in the case of the one that I mentioned earlier, my issue with him was more about having documented the services he provided in a reasonable amount of time. And that we have decided as a group that that is of benefit to clients and the public. So if he stumbled with that, learned his lesson and got better, that, to Dr. Barty's point, is a credit to him, not a black mark on it.
Yeah, and I see it as speaking to the integrity of the supervisory process, that there's a continuity with any associate, there's a continuity of oversight in the development during the supervisory dynamic that has a coordinated, it's not this supervisor has this way of doing this and this one totally does it totally different. I think it offers a bridge of that integrity to the supervisors.
For our public members, what do y'all think? Do y'all feel like this would protect the public by having supervisees pass their remediation plans on to their next supervisor?
I think it does. I think that as being in the mental health field, we try to break patterns of behavior. And so if a person remediated, that would be a great way to show that they've changing their behavior, and hopefully they're making positive changes to their pattern of behavior and not repeating what they've done.
I think it makes them a better therapist.
Will, you want to give anything to add? You don't have to.
I've gone back and forth, 'cause if it's resolved, right, then like what's the benefit? I guess maybe to help me level set here, right, this is probably like within a 2-year span, right,
Yeah.
right, so it's a defined period, so it's helpful. So I like Mr. Barty's comments, I think, as well, so I think it makes sense.
Any further discussion, or does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept 801.142 with the proposed changes. With,
Without change.
Without changes.
yes, without,
As
well,
it is on here.
well, as it, like right there. Because that's good, yes.
As proposed.
Yeah, that's what I said,
As proposed, okay.
yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, and any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of adopting 801.142 as proposed, raise your hand.
It's right there.
Okay, that's unanimous.
It's right there.
Yeah,
And
what
you
it
know,
says.
it's what it says.
Okay, then 801.43 is the one that I was trying to explain earlier. This just says that a supervisor may share a remediation plan developed for an associate with any current or future supervisor. Any discussion on this one? Okay, then may I have a motion for going to adopt it, if we're?
This is 143.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'm sorry, what's your motion?
I was gonna fun wrestle you for it.
Ms. Richardson, speak out.
What's your motion?
I motion to approve it,
Okay,
adopt it.
adopt it as proposed. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, James. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting 801.143 as proposed, raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Let me go back to my agenda. Okay, then moving on to the proposed rules. So again, these are the rules at the beginning of our rulemaking process. So we are going to vote to approve them today, they were to propose them today, then they would go to BHEC, then they would go to public comment, and they would come back here. So some of these are related. So 801.2, where's the other ones that have to do with, 801.112 and 801.113. Basically, these would all remove the word regionally from what it means to be accredited. Currently, there have just been, like, historically, accreditation happened at the regional level, and so you had to be accredited by something like SACS or, you know, one of the other kind of like regional accrediting agencies. There's been some shifts in that over the last several years, where universities no longer have to have regional accreditation, they can have national accreditation. There's also been some shifts, like Texas passed some legislation that basically, so this thing could be recognized by the Texas Board of, I don't know what it's called, the Texas Board of Education, THECB. So basically, this is just amending our rules to kind of catch up with changes that have happened at both the national and the state level. So any questions about this? Leslie? Or anything else, Patrick or Robert, you want to add?
That's exactly right.
Then is there any discussion?
Are we
about
gonna
these?
take them individually?
Can we take them as a, can we
You
take
can
them as a
take them as a
package?
group.
Well, if you take them as a group, 112, that strikes regionally,
Mhm.
also has
Oh, you're
the,
correct.
the passing grade
Yes.
criteria in there.
So this is essentially, and actually, I think this came out of our 4-year rule review, did it not? That basically, it's just kind of easier for staff if it's based on pass as opposed to a B. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, it created a situation where for a small subset of folks who had coursework that was not in their major and who got credit with a C, that still didn't count. People who had a B and got credit, it counted. People who just had something that said pass got credit. But if you had a C and got credit, we couldn't count it. And that just seemed like an unnecessary barrier when what we're looking for is you got credit from the institution for your course.
Yeah, and I'm okay with all that. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that if we're gonna
Yeah. take
lump
them
all
as a
these
blended,
together, that
yeah.
we're aware that
What we're
that
what
we're
taking.
also
Yes.
incorporating that, which I'm fine with, by the way. It was a point of order. maybe.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Is that the right word?
Okay. Is there any discussion about any of these 3 rules? So basically, if somebody wanted to make a motion, it would be to propose 801.2, 801.112, and 801.113 as proposed. Yes.
You may also wait and do one motion for all of them at the end. if you
Okay,
prefer.
well, we can do that. Okay, the next one is 801.57 child custody evaluations. Essentially, this is just updating our rules to match the Texas Family Code. Do you want to say anything else about that?
These are all statutorily required changes.
Should we make a comment? Sorry.
No, go for it.
Under HI, in addition to the minimum qualifications set forth by this rule, an individual must complete at least 8 hours of family violence dynamics training provided by a family violence service provider to be qualified to conduct child custody evaluations. We have had so many questions about who can provide continuing education. So many questions. And so that caught my attention. Who that is?
That is the language in the statute.
Yeah, I think there's specific family violence centers that provide this sort of training. So it's not anybody that we necessarily credential, but it actually was, so that I was actually in the added to the statute a little while back, but it appears in the LPC, the social work and the psychology board rules, but it has not existed in LMFTs for some reason, so we are adding it back to it, but it has existed for years for all of those boards. I'm not aware of people having trouble finding those type of providers to provide that sort of training, because it's such a niche area for forensic that they kind of know, like, oh, this is who I need to go for this sort of training.
Okay.
But it is specifically, if you look at the social work and the LPC rule and psychology, somewhat so, it all has the same requirements, but it's almost identical for LPC. Like the carryover is, we did not take any poetic license. We tried to put in what is exactly in the statute and what's in those particular rules. So there's a long way of me saying I don't think that I haven't heard people voice a problem about it, so I don't think that it's an issue, but I've been wrong before, but I have not heard that yet.
Got it, thank you. Okay, then the last one is 801.204, licensing of military service members. Again, just aligning with the state and federal statutory changes. Do y'all want to say anything more about that?
It's simply removing the phrasing of the substantially equivalent licensing requirements, which is no longer in the statute.
Okay, is there any further discussion or questions? Would somebody like to make a motion to accept all of these proposed rules?
I move that we adopt all the proposed rules.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of proposing these rules, raise your hand. Okay, that is unanimous. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 11, discussion and possible action concerning the letter from Chair Blimowitz regarding just like our responses to mass casualty events and other natural disasters. Is there any, I guess what stood out to y'all about the letter? What thoughts do you have about the letter? He did ask us in that letter for us to be, as boards, thinking about how we can be responsive to natural disasters and other mass casualty events in the state. And so I'm curious to see what y'all thought of.
Well, I appreciate staff writing this up and sending it out to licensees just to put it on their radar to sign up.
And I'm sharing that in June, Director Spink sent out an email update for how to pre-register and get prepared for a disaster before it happens with certain agencies. And I believe it was the LPC board that had invited testimony from an agency that also pre-registers and works with licensees to be prepared for a particular disaster response.
BHEC did that as well. I appreciate that, like, this email was sent, and I'm open to the board or to BHEC being a way of facilitating communication in times of disaster. I think that makes sense. But I do appreciate what Chair Blimowitz noted is that, we are not a disaster response agency. And so I'm not entirely sure what role we can play other than, if somebody needs a list of licensee emails, or facilitating communication in some way, I could see us doing that. One way that I did think that we could help is, as we're going to talk about later, is maybe this idea of adding a crisis CE to our rules. Because they could use that crisis, licensees could use that crisis CE to do things like take disaster training or get trained in mass casualty responses or, number of other things. But that might be one way to help prepare licensees for events like natural disasters or mass casualty events. So, any other thoughts or ideas? Comments, questions? Have the other boards come up with anything exciting or interesting, or?
No, and we've gotten some public feedback and we appreciate that. It is a thorny problem. If it were easy to solve, we would have solved it already.
Yeah.
But it very much is I think the message that everyone should take is if you are really interested in helping out in a disaster, be interested in it before the disaster happens and really get there and get prepared, because the organizations that have trained individuals in emergency management are the ones getting in there on the ground and helping. And we heard a number of news reports and local officials saying this past summer that they were inundated by people who were just getting in the way
Yeah,
and
exactly.
coming down and being disaster tourists.
Yeah.
And that's not helpful.
Okay, then if there's no further discussion, we'll move on to agenda item number 12, discussion and possible action concerning review of survey results from LMFT Associates and everybody else regarding continuing education. Do we need another break? Or are we good to go move on to this? Okay, let's keep going.
If Mr. Castro needs to deal with parking.
Yeah, I was just gonna roll the dice.
Okay.
Let's see what happens.
Okay, so, well, first, I hope read at least the first of the item of the white paper. This thing, it's actually purple, of the purple paper in your packet. So I guess we just, how much information do y'all need from me before do y'all want me to give y'all kind of like a little 5-minute overview of this document? Would that be helpful? Okay, let me do that. Okay, so essentially, kind of the history of this is that once upon a time, we were not with BHEC and we call that pre-HEC. Okay, so before BHEC, we were pre-HEC. And what we used to do is if somebody wanted to become a CE provider, they sent us $50, gave us their name, and we called them a CE provider. You know, we did not look at their credentials. We did not look at their, work. Like they were done. And so essentially anybody who wanted to be a CE provider could be a CE provider. Sunset Commission came in and basically said, y'all can't do this. This is like taking money for no reason. And also we didn't even get the money. Like the money just went to like the state. Yeah, to the general fund. So Sunset Committee said you can no longer do that, or Sunset Commission. So we had to make a very difficult decision to like mix the provider rules and in our rules. And so for a couple of years after we formed BHEC, essentially there were no rules around who could provide CEs. In 2022, we created some rules, and in that rule, we created like a provider list. And our hope was with the provider list is that we provide some sort of structure, for supervisees to be able to get, just so that they would know, like, where do I need to get my CEs from? And so we tried to create this provider list, provide a little bit of structure. We've gotten a lot of pushback on that in terms of feeling like that it, limits, like this list seems in some ways kind of arbitrary. Like, why are some people on it and some people not on it? Why is it 50%? What if I get, what if I do a 40-hour training? Like, I don't know, we just got lots of pushback kind of about this whole 40-hour, this whole like provider list. So we decided as a board to do a survey of licensees about CE requirements and just kind of really what truly was their experience. Are they helpful? Are they not helpful? We received some feedback that we need to get rid of all CEs. We get other feedback saying that people don't, or that we need to keep them all, or maybe even more. And so it's like, let's just ask. Anyways, that's essentially what we did with the surveys. We had 16 questions. We sent it out to all, 5,600 licensees. I think we heard from about 680, which is about a 13% response rate, which I'm absolutely really thrilled. So thank you all for responding to that. And essentially what we found is that licensees do like CEs, that they actually find CEs for the most part, to be helpful, which kind of surprised me. I don't know, I'm trying to think of some of the other major findings. Basically, they found that CEs were helpful. They found that, like whether it's live or video or in person, like none of that matters. All that's really helpful. They find the confusion, they do provide the provider list to be fairly confusing and try to figure out and discern like what accounts as 50% and what doesn't. There was a lot of confusion over that. Anyways, they had ideas about half the participants said that we need to like keep our CEs about the same. The other half said that we need to reduce them. Anyways, I took all that information and I came back to the professional development committee and I basically said, I've come up with 2 plans based on the results. Plan number 1 is like, I called it my radical plan. And it's like, if we just want to be completely radical and we want to do something completely different out of the box, like this is the radical plan. Or if we want to play it a little bit safe, then we can do the kind of not so radical plan. The professional development committee decided that we wanted to go with the radical plan. And so I'm going to kind of walk y'all through what the radical plan is. And then I'll tell you what the next step is. So basically this, under the radical plan, we would keep the total 30 hours required of CEs. You still have to get 30 hours. This is consistent with both social work. It's consistent with social work. It's less than psychology, which is 40, and it's more than LPC, which is 24. We would repeal the provider list, again, because this is kind of an arbitrary attempt to control quality. Other people in the survey noted that like, there's so many people, like some people are like, this is limiting, and other people are like, so much is on here that it's meaningless, you know, like, anyway, so we would repeal that. This would also then put us back technically where we were pre-HEC and where we were pre-2022, which is where anybody can provide CEs. The next thing that the radical plan would require is that 20 hours must come from an activity that generates some sort of CE certificate. So doing like, going to a presentation, doing a live webinar, just any of the things that you would generate a CE certificate. And then up to 10 hours may come from activities that do not generate a CE certificate. And these are the things that are currently listed in 801.216. So this is things like, doing a self-study, so just like reading a book, not getting any credit for it, listening, I don't know, I'm trying to think what else is on 261.
Teaching presentations.
Writing a book, yeah, those kinds of things. So basically we would say that 10 hours can come from like these things that don't generate a CE certificate, and like 20 hours need to come from something that does generate a CE certificate. I will say that Daryl and I had a conversation about this, and Daryl actually made a really good point that makes me think that we should just stick to the 50-50. But maybe we'll talk about that in a second. Anyways, but right now the radical plan is 2010. The next part of the radical plan is to remove the limits of the things listed in 801.261. So that we don't have to monitor it. It's just basically like you get 10 hours of doing these things that don't generate a CE certificate. And we're not going to tell you that only one can be this or only 3 can be this. It's like, whatever you want to use for those 10, you can decide for yourself. The next thing is more about clarification, because in the study, people said, I think that these things ought to count for self-study, and they do actually count for self-study. It's just not very clear in the rule that it counts for self-study. So clarify that self-study includes reading books, listening to podcasts, watching videos, and then would add things like professional engagement. So doing peer consultation, doing book reading groups, we're reading a book together and we're processing it. If you go to staff meetings and you're actually processing cases and staffing cases, if you're getting voluntary supervision, if you're watching live therapy, these are all things in the survey that people said that they found really helpful for improving their practice. And so again, if licensees are finding these helpful, then why not include them, right? And the point that Daryl made here was he said, are these things as effective or more effective than going to a CE presentation? And that really got me thinking, because I know that sometimes having conversations with my peers and doing peer consultations and doing case staffings, that those are actually sometimes more helpful than going through a presentation. And so then he said, then why limit to only 10? Why not leave it 50-50? And so anyways, we can talk about that, but that was what he said. And I thought, well, Daryl, you're making a pretty good point there. Okay, the next thing is just about carrying forward through to the next renewal period. Basically, we would only allow them to carry through to the next renewal period things that are actually documented. So CEs that are actually documented as opposed to things that are undocumented. And then we talked about reducing the current hour requirements. So currently you have to get 6 hours in ethics, 3 hours in a specific population, 2 hours in technology assisted services if you provide it, 6 hours and 6 hours in supervision if you provide supervision. Which basically means that like if you're a supervisor, like something like, I don't have it in here, 19 of your hours, if you are a supervisor who provides telehealth, like 19 of your 30 hours have to fit into one of these boxes, which doesn't leave you a lot of room to do things that are maybe of more interest to you in your practice. So essentially what we proposed is reducing the hours requirements to only 3 hours in ethics, 2 hours in a specific population, 1 hour in technology assisted services if you provide it, and 3 hours in supervision, and then adding 2 hours in crisis services. And this would cover things related to like child abuse, elderly abuse, suicidal and homicidal ideation, domestic violence, disaster response, mass casualty events, and just any kind of other like urgent or emergent events that might happen. And so all together, this would reduce like that block to 7 hours for an LMFT who does not use technologies, 8 hours from LMFT who does use technology, and 11 hours from LMFTS who uses technology. So anyways. And then finally, the thing we talked about was expanding the TAS definition to include artificial intelligence and maybe other technologies, electronic health records, you know, just any kind of technology. So not just limiting it to TAS, but all sorts of technology. So the next step, if y'all like the radical, first let me just say, we have open discussion here about whether y'all like the radical plan or don't like the radical plan. The next step, if we do decide that we like the radical plan, would be asking staff to begin looking in the rules committee, to begin looking at our rules and crafting rule in line with this. However, it would be really difficult for us to make these significant changes not in alignment with the other boards. And so probably after we crafted some rule, the next step would actually probably be to go to the other boards and try to sell it. And then if we could sell it to the other boards, then us all make the changes together. So this would not be a change. We also was just rolling out the CE broker. We don't want to like, you know, throw a bomb into the middle, like right as we're like rolling out CE broker. So this would not be an immediate process, but basically we probably spend the next few months developing the rule, and then we'd spend the next few months, you know, convincing the other boards. And so maybe a year from now, you know, we'd actually have a written rule somewhere, you know what I mean, being proposed. So that's kind of the idea. So questions, comments, thoughts?
Well, these are statute changes, right?
Mm-mm.
These are just rule changes?
Mhm.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you to the committee for your work on this. Trust your diligence.
Mostly her.
Yeah, nice job, Dr. Marchant.
Thank you.
Yeah. I am super pleased to hear peer consultation added because I think it's a valuable resource that we've kind of overlooked in our rules before. And so I'm all about it. I think what we do is we shop the radical plan around to the other boards. We shop the radical plan then out to our licensees with public comment. It will change through all that process. So why not just move it forward and see what happens? That's my thought.
Yeah, I think I didn't mention this. I think another part of rolling this out would be talking to the professional associations, talking to licensees, gathering feedback. Like this would be kind of a long, slow process. So
I just appreciate that it's data-driven decisions.
yeah, I do too.
And you want to expand on your conversations with Daryl about the provider listing?
It's about the, it's about 50-50.
Right,
Yeah.
we have 50-50, and that's different from repealing the provider list.
Yeah, so
Right.
Daryl was in favor of removing the provider list. He was just trying to, he was pushing back a little bit on why the 2010 split. And he was saying his recommendation was to leave it a 50-50 split, especially if things like on that 50-50, especially if those things that we don't collect a CE certificate for, if those things are just as effective as sitting through a CE presentation, then why limit them?
I make it 15 and 15.
Make it 15 and 15, yeah. And then he also feels like that would be a better and easier sell to the other boards, because then, you know, if we leave it 50-50, then LPC is, you know, 12-12 and psychology is, you know, 20-20, you know, whereas if we have this weird like 66, 33, it's, it just makes, it's easier to be 50-50, yes.
I'm curious if we've thought about how people would be documenting this, since we do have to go through CE broker. Will we upload a picture of my cat that says, I read this book to my cat? Like that, to me, is sort of one of those hanging chat pieces.
Yeah, and that's, since Daryl's not here, I don't want to overspeak it, but I don't want to underspeak too. He would want me to say, he's not in favor of doing it.
Okay,
He's supportive as staff of what the board
Yes, there you
wants. But yeah, I think that the hard part is it makes a lot of intuitive sense to talk about moving the rules to what's meaningful conduct, and that all of these things that do not have certificates are very meaningful experiences that
provide education. And so as soon as you start pulling on that thread and you start saying, well, why wouldn't we move down to letting a larger portion of those rules, you then start to swing the pendulum potentially too far, because then you have questions about, well, but so now is anybody actually doing it? How do we know? Are they documenting? If you only now require 10 hours of certified CE and 20 of, not that you're saying that, but if you went really far, how are you even sure that that's happening? That's where it's hard, and where we as staff will have to try to think about, and we'll look and see if there are other states doing something that helps.
Well, one of the things that I learned it clear is that Colorado, which I think is a meaningful part of their CE process, it's not just go sit in a webinar for 2 hours and give me a certificate saying you sat there. It's write up a summary of what you learned and how it will change your practice. So there is evidence of processing what you got out of
That's
it.
what you turn into the board.
That's what they turn into the board.
I see.
So, I mean, I think in addition to a certificate, some type of write-up, Sarah's going, oh
I know.
my,
No.
what are you talking about?
No.
But they talked about how it makes it so much more, you've mentioned this.
Yeah,
how
we did. Yeah.
It makes it so much more effective as a learning tool if you're required to reflect on it somehow.
I agree with that, but I mean, we just talked about how the board isn't, the staff isn't fully staffed
Yeah.
as it is. And so I understand why
In an ideal
Sarah
world.
had an animated response to
Yeah,
that.
we don't want to read 93,000
No.
essays
Right.
every other year, so.
Well, but then again, y'all may not, that may not be your bailiwick. How can you determine whether or not this person really got something out of it, or they just kind of got something out of it? I mean, how are you gonna quantify that?
We'll
Well,
use
it's not-
ChatGPT.
That's not really her point.
Yeah. Or Claude, that would be good too. Another thing too, because I kind of like the idea of limiting certain hours, because I can see over a period of 2 years, someone saying, I get 10 hours of reading books and research and stuff, so that's my 10 hours.
Mhm.
And I got the other 20 of this, but I don't even know if I know how to document that. Because over 2 years,
You'd have to track it.
it was,
Yeah.
oh, well, ish.
Well,
Because CE broker just says, do you attest that you did it? Yes.
I mean, I think you would just report it, I think we would just have like documented and undocumented, and they would just report, I think there'd be a way to report it in CE broker.
Well, true, but I think a third of the CEs could come from just
So you like the 2010?
reading
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Well, I like, if you're reading stuff, let's give you a credit for it. But we're not gonna give you a third of all of your CEs over 2 years for reading.
So you would suggest less than 10 hours?
No, I would suggest what we what we currently have, because I think you get 1 hour of CE
Yeah.
if you read, which is nice. I mean, that's good, but
I guess I'm not opposed to somebody getting 10 hours of CE for reading for 10 hours because.
well, I am, because I think it's too casual. I think it's too sloppy. I think it's,
So I'm sorry, I'm gonna just jump in. So
Yeah.
obviously brainstorming is going on here.
Yeah.
So what committee would this fall into to actually bring something back? Maybe?
We did it in the professional development.
Because what came to mind to me also is if we had on the website a standardized form for these extra hours, whatever they are, date, what it was, what you completed, it's still gotta be loaded up into CE broker there.
Yeah.
Everybody still gets random audits, there's still a percentage, so
Yeah.
there's still the possibility somebody get caught if they're just slacking.
With a summary of what you got out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that could be, again, a one pager. And again, the staff's not reading everything that's going into CE broker.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of brainstorming. There could be a way to meet both.
well, staff.
Where we
for-
capture something.
From CE brokers, staff just gets numbers, don't they?
We,
Do y'all read through?
so for the renewals, it's just looking at the numbers to make sure they've reported sufficient. But for the post renewal audits, 5% of licensees, our staff will actually go in and see what they've uploaded, see the documents.
Okay, so there would be the,
So it'd be 5% of half of 93,000. 4,500. Or no, 22.
20, yeah, come on. 2,000. We have one staff member who reads all this for 2,000 people a month. It takes,
William?
it's a lot.
You look like it's on the tip of your tongue.
A month?
I just,
Anyways, I have to, well, we'll do math later.
I would say, I think the question is, right, do you agree or not agree with the revamp? I don't know, I'd call it radical, a revamp, right? I think. And then I would, I'm solved now, but like, you're giving leeway, but then you're taking some away by having to like, what, if you don't trust them, then don't give it, right? But we can solve that.
From a regulatory perspective, I think aiming to have meaningful CE requirements is good. I think having the conversation is very good. And what we will ultimately want is a rule that requires what we think is going to be a meaningful experience for both the people who are overachieving and choosing to go out and get the best experience possible, and for the folks who are doing the bare minimum. And that the rule has to be written for both.
Okay, further conversation, discussion.
What are our options for making a
Again,
decision?
you would just basically direct staff to begin crafting rule, probably in conjunction with the rules committee. Is that correct? And that way we'd have an idea of kind of what we're looking at.
How to translate this into regulatory language.
Yeah, and then from there, again, it would be talking to the boards.
So logistically, just help me hear that. So this was in the professional development committee, but now it gets passed. Execution standpoint.
Would that make, that means to me that makes no sense, is to move to the rules committee, right?
Yes, yes.
Or would it stay in the professional development committee?
Well, it doesn't actually matter. It can be either, whichever y'all find the most appropriate. It is either way, we won't propose a rule in the
Right.
next few months.
Yeah,
So it does not have to come from the rule committee,
okay,
but it can, I'd say send it back to the professional development committee if you want more focus on the
I'm sorry, again.
the principles, send it to the rules committee if you really want focus on practical regulatory language. But either is fine.
Okay, so let me just say, the professional development committee is Russ, James, me, and William. The rules committee is me, Jody, James, and Elvira. Of the people, like, is there anybody who just like really wants, like, you just really want to tackle this? Or is there anybody who's like, please don't make me tackle this?
I'd enjoy being involved.
Okay, well then is it okay if we leave it on the professional development committee? That would be Russ, me, William, and James.
ish, because I was thinking that what we could do as the board is we could accept the proposal of pursuing the development of the radical plan to move toward the rule creation dynamic.
Right. Or it could be that,
Or if the board is gonna say, the radical plan looks pretty good, it's like 80%, 85%, 90%, really good, but it probably needs some fine tuning, then I think it would kick back to the professional development to fine tune it.
well, I can
Is it
also
gonna
just,
get fine tuned in the rules committee though?
I can also put you on the rules committee. Is it
I'm not looking for two committees.
Yes, you are.
I think, given that the professional development committee is the most steeped and familiar with this data and the development of the plan, then I would suggest, even if it's writing rules, it needs to go back to the professional development committee, because you're the one that came up with the plan in the first place.
Okay, well, I
But
can
they're the ones
also,
that like it.
say that again?
But if the people that came up with it like it, and there's,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
not
this,
everybody
this-
likes
They
it,
passed it out.
then
this-
maybe
this
a
is
new
like-
group should
this
look
is
at
like,
it.
it's being turned in for the grade, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so,
Well, these,
Send it to rules.
okay, we'll probably send it to rules, but like I will I might shift around our,
Messed up.
I know.
we'll just swap him out
I,
with somebody on the rules.
yeah, well, I could,
Or feel free to lurk. You could just,
Join us.
yes.
yeah, we'll figure it out. Okay.
Oh, quorum. You
Say it
can't
again.
lurk in the
Can't
rules
lurk.
committee unless you're on it, because otherwise we have a quorum.
Yeah, it's a good. point.
I will figure it out and do what I can. to-
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Trust you.
But does this need a proposal?
Oh, yes,
to-
I need somebody to make a motion to direct staff. Do I need somebody to make a motion? Do we have to vote on this or how does this work?
We're not
Just
formally
Yes,
proposing.
yeah, we're not
Okay.
proposing, we can just, yeah,
Okay,
if there's
so-
not major
okay.
objection, we
Y'all
would need a
re-
vote if y'all wanted to kill it.
We're just
But if
gonna,
you're
I
moving it
ins-
forward.
I instruct staff to work with the rules committee or a committee, with a committee to
we're-
develop this.
we're passing this.
Yeah.
off
Can
to the
I
rules.
actually, can I pause? Is there anybody who wants to, in the public, who wants to make a comment on this? Is
Barbie,
that opening
you
up?
have any, Barbie, out our public?
Or
Please use the raise hand
Barbie,
feature
don't
if
look
you'd
at me,
like to
don't
make
look
a
at me.
comment.
Oh, more
Ooh, there's a
comments.
Ms. Clemens?
I really appreciate Lisa Masters making a radical suggestion. I think it's an awesome idea, and I really appreciate her thinking outside the box. And I think it really benefits all of us when we just do some thinking about, hey, what's best for us, what's best for our clients, and what's best for the public. And, maybe we should look at this differently or reframe the whole question. So thank you so much, Ms. Masters.
Welcome. Okay, any other comment?
I have a question for clarification. I had in my notes that the vote today might be whether or not to post the report. And Daryl had instructed perhaps if it's approved today, not to post until after the new year, so there's not so much turmoil about CE broker and new CE rules, or rumors won't spread or that kind of thing. Do you wish to pursue that kind of vote or leave this as a working document at this point?
So that would come with the recommendations that are on the. I would post it.
You say no. You'll hold off posting?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're not ready yet.
Okay.
For
Thank you.
mom and dad still need to talk about it before you tell the kids.
Well, you got some new board members here too, that would maybe have something to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bit more context.
Yeah.
Oh,
Checks
I
on me.
Okay, moving then on to, unless there's, I don't see any other raised hands. Discussion, or moving on to agenda item number 13, discussion of possible action regarding the guidelines for practice monitors. Essentially, I will just say this actually came to us through Nicole. Yeah, she's a part of a supervisor group, and this kind of came up in one of her supervision groups that there's not a whole lot of direction for practice monitors on what that means or what that looks like. And so then we created this, Jody actually created this guidelines for practice monitors. So thank you for doing that, Jody. Okay, questions, comments, discussion?
I think it's great. I thought it was a really great place to start, and it gives some scaffolding for somebody who's, because it's not something that I think is often discussed or talked about. In fact, I only know one person that has been a practice monitor. I think this gives some great 101 basic scaffolding for this is what it means, this is what it looks like, this is how you get started. I thought it was wonderful.
I agree.
If I have specific wording feedback, do I do that now or later?
You can just send it to me and Sarah.
Otherwise, yeah, thanks for printing that up.
Okay. So if basically here, do we need to vote, or can we just again direct you to post this to the website?
I suppose it should be adopted.
Yeah, I guess are the change, what's the final version, I guess, is one of the issues, right? Should we come back with a clean version at the next board meeting to then post it?
Are your edits
They're
just
not
tweaks?
substantial edits, they're tweaks. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Then, yeah, we probably would like a formal motion to adopt this as a guideline,
Okay.
subject to
Some minor tweaks.
non-substantive edits.
Yeah.
And would it be, show up on the website like under the FAQs? So you want to be a practice monitor? Or,
It's on,
I think I'm gonna be a practice monitor. What do I have to do? Click.
currently
or
your
something like that.
guidelines are on the forms and publications page. So that's where I would, direct people. Put it, but we can certainly put an FAQ that says, so you want to be a practice monitor? Link here.
I
Do you
like
think-
the idea of keeping all the FAQs
Together.
there and then redirecting.
Well, does
What
somebody,
is a practice monitor?
and does somebody want to make a motion to post this to our website with some non-substantive changes?
I make said motion.
Yay, okay, who wants to second? Me, yay, okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Okay, discussion item 14, or this item number 14, discussion of possible action to re-elect or replace vice chair of the board, which is currently Dr. Jody Elder. I nominate Dr. Jody Elder to being the vice chair. Is there any discussion? Will you, well, actually, I should ask if she's, will you accept? Okay.
I wanted to twist it over. Put up some resistance.
Is there a second?
Oh, yeah, we'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of electing Dr. Jody Elder as our vice chair, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Oh, well, it's, are you?
I didn't vote because I assume I'm not allowed to.
You can vote for yourself.
Okay. It is unanimous, we're all voting in favor. Okay, agenda item number 15, recommendation for agenda items for the next meeting. I want to actually, if y'all have any agenda items, we can talk about those, but one of the things that I do want to do or wonder here is we are currently the only board that is meeting every 3 months, so we meet 4 times a year. Most recently, like we were supposed to meet in April and then in July and then again in September. So typically we meet January, April, July, September. This year we were unable to, we had to move our April board meeting to, was it May or June?
Okay.
May. Yeah, so we had to move that to May. I did not want us to have a meeting 2 weeks or 2 months later in July, so we nixed our July meeting. And so we actually have, it's been 4 months or so since we've met. And so this just makes me wonder, do we want to continue this pattern of, do we want to follow suit with BHAC and the other boards and only meet 3 times a year, or do we want to continue to meet 4? If we were to meet 3 times a year, basically we would try to meet shortly before every BHAC meeting, so that way we can propose the rule here, BHAC can approve it, it can go to public comment, and then by our next meeting, 4 months later, we would be able to actually adopt those rules. That generally works out most times for us, but because we are on a slightly different schedule, our July meeting usually falls between 2 BHAC meetings. And so sometimes either our July meeting or our September meeting, we don't have rules because we generally have less to do because we haven't had, things have not been able to go through BHAC and to public comments and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? I don't know. So I just want to throw it back out there to you guys. Do we want to move to 3 meetings or do we want to stick to 4?
So my question is, what are the implications for our efficiencies regarding application processing and complaint resolution if we do that? Because I want to keep our numbers good.
Yeah.
It would only really impact a slight slowdown in application appeals and SOA final orders. One last meeting for those to come up. There are often no appeals and no SOA cases. Those would be the only things that would be impacted, and there are very, very few of those.
And sorry, and as we discussed earlier, your board has the slowest number of complaints pending. So I really don't anticipate that being any sort of issue on the SOA or complaint side.
And all of those things then have to get finally approved at the BHEC meeting anyway, so it doesn't.
That was what I was gonna say, that BHEC would be if you met 4 times a year, BHEC still only meets 3 times a year. So the SOA orders and other orders that are approved by BHEC would wait until then. With the process that we have with the licensing committee, I was just looking at numbers for Robert earlier today, and most of the marriage and family therapy issues with licensees have been resolved at the committee level rather than being appealed to the board level. I think you've had 2 in the last 2 meetings, so it might look like it's a regular thing, but it hasn't been.
So would it be, I'm just looking at more tactical questions, so would you shift it to be September, January, and May?
Probably January, May, September, yeah. Because BHEC is February, February, June, and October, so we try to do it the month before that. I will say May is a really hard time, but hopefully we can. September's hard.
And the other boards have reacted by, I think social work often is in April and LPC is often in June, so May is not it must be in May.
Yeah, I'm looking, it looks like right now, social work is April 24th. Basically April 24th, May 1st, May 7th, and then BHEC is June 16th. So we'd be able to do either sometime in April or sometime maybe towards the end of May or early June would still be.
Daryl has asked that it's be at least 30 days before the BHEC meeting, just so staff can get all the mechanisms going as the board proposes rules and then as the council looks at the proposals.
So it actually might still be.
So might want to still be at least before May 16th.
Yeah, so it might still be January, April. Like January, April, September.
So just try getting rid of the July meeting. Well, what if we try it next year? If we hate it, we can add it back.
Yeah, well, I guess my question would be, sorry, I shouldn't be eating in the middle of a meeting anyway.
So rude.
Bring it up
Should
for
we,
everybody.
would we want to adjust, oh, do you want somebody else first? Should we adjust would we adjust this year moving forward? So in other words, we leave our January meeting, that's already established, we're going to SMU.
That would help you out because then you're not gonna be in conflict with TMFT conference if we move it later in.
I mean, it could be
April
assuming
anyway.
there's even a place to move it to, because like right now we're April 10th, April 24th, May 1st, May 7th.
Oh.
And then I know that I'm gonna be out of town the next 2 Fridays after May 7th, so May 14th and May 21st. And if it has to be 30 days before, then it could be that April 10th is where we.
We've squeezed them on that before, but
And we can work out the dates
Right.
Afterwards, particularly because this particular year, we just talked about, y'all might want to do the April 10th so that it's down in Galveston. Which is fine, we can talk about whether that's possible. So I think we would be fine if we can make the year work with 3 meetings if y'all are.
I like the idea of us thinking that our meetings will be at least 30 days prior to the meeting. And then whatever that's gonna look like, it's gonna be at least the 30 days that would give BHEC time to have everything they need. So, and if we keep it that way, then we're tracking along with BHEC.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're all like, yep, 3 times a year and we'll figure out the logistics later.
Okay, cool. That
The
sounds
reason it's
great.
always on Friday.
I make a motion.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, just for. Make it eat, do you not like Fridays? Okay, it's just
It's not
easier
my
for,
preference,
yeah, it's just easier for not having to take off in the middle of the week for clients and things.
So I move that we begin to meet 3 times a year.
We actually have to vote on that?
Oh, I don't know.
No,
I thought we
I don't
did.
think so. I think we just do
Oh,
it.
okay, never mind.
But if
I mean-
it's much-
Yeah.
You just show up.
I mean, I'm not
And the
positive,
motion
but I
goes-
think that I could like. leave it.
I'd like to second her motion.
Thanks for that.
Okay, Are there any other items or
Vice chair in action.
things that we as the board need to be thinking about, things we need to be talking about, things you want on the agenda, things you want the committees to be working on? Is there anything else?
No, but I would, with the new committee,
Mhm.
changes and stuff, that if we're gonna be meeting 3 times a year, I think it's gonna be really important
Right,
to have scheduled committee meetings
I agree.
to make sure that we don't let anything slip through a crack or have to do catch up.
I agree.
So I think in addition to the 3 formal meetings that we have as a philosophy, that we schedule regular meetings of every committee on the calendar, and if there's something to talk about, great. If there's nothing to talk about, at least we got together and talked about that there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah. Or we can figure out what we do need, what should we be talking about? If we don't have anything to talk about, what should we be talking about? Or
Yeah.
what direction do we want to go in? I agree with you completely, Russ.
With BHEC, the vision for the licensing committee was that it would be more on an ad hoc basis as staff encountered a problem with a particular application, so that we could keep applications more timely resolved. So if we're going to schedule them at intervals, then my only concern is that we are then now imposing some weight, perhaps, for an applicant that in the past, we might have been able to call a licensing committee meeting next week or within 2
When have we
weeks.
been
that kind of thing.
next week?
What?
When have we ever been able to do that in a week? And even then, we've sometimes needed more time, right?
Correct.
So we've always, you can call more. I think what he's saying is more like,
We just need to make sure we're meeting.
Just be more intentional about more routine committee meetings.
But I agree with what you're saying, Sarah, that like for licensing matters and things, like
Yeah.
those are unpredictable. Like you can't,
Yeah.
we can't dictate those.
Yeah, could we as staff request that we regularly schedule all the committees except the licensing committee?
Sure.
And that one, we're gonna bother you as soon as we need you.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, 2 things.
Yeah.
I'm presenting at just for public, I'm presenting at the TCA conference on behalf of the board.
Yay.
Russ had to duck out because he's gonna go to Vegas without me. What is that about?
Is this on for
Yes.
everybody?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, I just had this idea that my wife and I were gonna fly into Vegas. We're gonna go to the Sphere and watch The Wizard of Oz.
Oh,
The
yay.
new AI generated version in the Sphere that's
Mhm.
4D and stuff.
I've heard really good things.
Have
about it.
dinner and come home that night. It's a 1-day, go to Vegas, come back and kind of deal, just because we can.
Mhm.
And it
love
just
it.
happens to be on the day
We're supposed to
that
present.
we were supposed to
Yeah.
present.
Man,
So.
abandoning you.
So I told my wife, have fun. I'm gonna be with with Jody on this.
So it's the TCA conference is November 19th through 21st in Galveston, and I will be presenting for the board on Thursday at 4:00 while everybody's wide awake and ready to party. And then the last piece, just for clarification. I read every document in that file. Is there any way in the future, if it's no longer relevant, we can be given a heads up to not read it?
So here was my thought process.
Yeah.
I provided you the bulk of the materials about May 1st.
Yeah.
No, September, I don't know, whatever month we're in, about the 1st. On the 15th was when I received her request to withdraw. And some applicants don't truly get the picture of, we're like scheduling a court date for you. It's not like, oh, I'll go to a movie tonight, or maybe I'll go to a movie tomorrow. So I half expected the next day to get an email that said,
Oh,
oh,
Never
wait,
mind.
I want to.
I want to go forward with it.
I do, yeah.
So I do apologize for the board members. Also, in her letter withdrawing the appeal, she made claims about customer service and about staff errors. And so if the board had instruction for staff, I would happily accept them in regard to customer service, or if you thought any staff error had occurred, even if she wasn't here. It wouldn't necessarily resolve her appeal, but it might enhance my service.
There is nothing to enhance about your service.
No
You're
kidding.
amazing, particularly in that particular instance. You went above and beyond
Exactly.
repeatedly.
Yes, you
Nice
did.
job.
I'd like to make a
Yes.
motion that we formally congratulate.
Yeah.
Affirm,
Commend.
affirm,
Yes,
commend.
Sarah. Oh
Yes.
my gosh.
But no, as I read through all that, you were spot on.
I'll entertain ideas on should it happen in the future. This one in particular was convoluted and
Interesting.
verbose.
Interesting.
And
I was just curious what the process was. That helps. Thanks.
I'd never had it happen before.
And never again, I hope. Yep. That's it.
Okay, anything else? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand.
You don't need to vote.
Okay, we are adjourned
It's just a
at
motion.
4:22.
Good job. Good job.